Cousin Jared, welcome back. Feeling
Good
better?
to be back. What I would say is don't allow strep throat and the stomach flu into your house at the same time. Would be my recommendation. It was unpleasant.
Duly noted. That does sound not very fun. Glad to have you back. We're going to run through college football week 10. And again, this is what I'm calling football week. College football week. I don't know. We have college basketball starting next week. So not our last Raw. We're still going to be doing college football going forward, but this YouTube channel is going to get a little bit overwhelmed with all the college basketball content coming up soon. So we are giving everybody a sneak peek here into what the people at Dub Club get every single week, where you and I talk about every single game. We talk about all the A grade, talk about everything we would or wouldn't do. Usually the show goes more than 2 hours. There's a lot of games this week. I think our goal is just to stay there 3. So it's going to be a lot of content here for you that you don't usually get. But if you want to get it every week, if you're enjoying this and you want all the A grade plays and all the other benefits, the Discord community, which is a great group of people over there, under $1 a day, that sign up link in the show description for Dub Club. Otherwise, though, Cousin Jared, without further ado, we got to get right to it because
let's do it.
There's a lot to cover. Thursday night, TCU and Tech. Jake and I cover this one on the show. We have TCU as an A grade at plus odds. What do you got for us on this one?
Look, TCU hasn't been that great on the road this season. But this just feels like too steep of a price to me for a team that, when you look at Texas Tech, pace of 123, but an offensive rating of only 102. If you would have told me that Tech this season would have only had an offensive rating of 102, I don't know that I would have believed you. I like what I've seen from Hoover at quarterback for TCU. I think he's been an upgrade there. And I think we may have to give a little bit of a pass from what we saw from TCU last time they were on the road when they got blistered by Kansas State.
Because it just might be really good.
Kansas State might be really good, and Texas Tech is not Kansas State, is how I would, say that. So
that's very, very well put. Yeah, it's not that TCU is the best team in the world. It's just, what has Tech done to make us think that they can really do anything this season? They haven't been very good. Wake Forest and Duke also on Thursday night. 3 Thursday night games. Have an A grade. We have 3 A grade plays on Thursday, so we got the A grade plays galore. Wake Forest getting 12.5 points. Model thinks it should be Duke -5. Riley Leonard looking ready to go. Wake Forest. I have no idea who's quarterback for Wake Forest. It doesn't even matter. They've had multiple guys there, and they've all been pretty rough. This is really just about, Duke's a solid team, but winning by that much has not been something that I feel like Duke's done a lot of lately. Where's your head on this one?
I completely agree. Even when Leonard came back last week, we still didn't see a ton of wonderful things out of the Duke offense. Trust their defense, not so much their offense. I do have to say this play does not give me. We've been talking about the Discord for weeks. I don't feel great about this play. Like, it's not my favorite one on the weekend, but those seem to be the ones that win all the time. Is the ones that we dislike the most.
We have talked about that, of like the if you take the 10 picks we like the least, that we're like the most afraid of, like 7 of them win. It seems like because we're afraid to win to everyone else is too, and that sometimes literally creates value in the market, right? For the fact that everyone else is going that way too. Wake Forest hasn't been that impressive. No, Duke hasn't been that impressive lately either. Your schools like Wake Forest, Duke, Syracuse has definitely been a part of this. You wonder as the season goes along, just the injuries. If that's just kind of making them not play quite to that level that we saw that first month of the season that we were expecting out of Duke and Syracuse. Wake Forest just hasn't been that great all season. They just don't look like they've got the depth and they've always had that issue. It seems like even worse this year. Troy, the other Thursday night game, home against South Alabama. We've been loving us some Troy. Model says Troy -15. I don't think South Alabama is good. I think South Alabama is getting a ton of respect for that Oklahoma State game, which is going to be in the top 5, I think, weirdest games of the year. South Alabama, Oklahoma. That makes no sense in hindsight. South Alabama is not bad. They're a solid team. They're a decent Sun Belt. They're a good Sun Belt team. Troy's just insanely good. Like, I just don't know why we got -215 on this pick. If you want to lay, you're laying under a touchdown. And I think it should be 2. We love us some Troy. Troy's been good to us. I mean, it's just lather and repeat with Troy, it seems like, right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. I can't believe that this money line, even if that was something that you are interested in, I don't know how this money line keeps coming down as well. It was like -240 when it opened. It got down to like -210. I think it's down like around -190, -180 something. I like Troy a lot. I would say copy and paste what I've said from Troy before. When you have two group of 5 teams and you have a unit on the field that is as good as Troy's defense, I mean, it's just going to be really tough for somebody else to knock them off. South Alabama could potentially do, but
weird things happen in sports.
Yeah, but not at minus 180, whatever that the implied odds are for that. It's not at that number. And even Troy's offense, like it's above average, which is one thing I think that held them back last year. The defense was good last year, but the offense could disappear at times. The offense has been more consistent this year. So anyway, I love Troy. This is one of those, I would say the exact opposite of the Wake Forest Duke game in that I love this pick. So what could possibly go wrong?
What could go wrong? Exactly. Yeah, Troy's offense is pretty solid. Gunnar Watson at quarterback's been doing well. Model says they went 83% of the time. And around minus 200, the break-even point for that is 67%. I mean, there's just a massive edge here on Troy. We love us some Troy. 2 games Friday night, Boston College and Syracuse. Hey, great play on Syracuse. Cousin Jared, we got burned last week on Syracuse. How much of that do you think is Syracuse? How much we talked about Virginia Tech? We were kind of like, maybe they're turning a quarter. We don't know. We don't quite believe yet. And then they looked really good. How much of that was Virginia Tech Friday night home game? There were a lot of variables there. It's one of those, it sucks. Like I hate it when you lose a pick and you don't feel like you learned a lot from it. I like it when we're going to lose some, right? And you learn something, but like we lost something. I'm like, I don't know what to make of that. What do you make of that? What do you make of this going in? We're on Syracuse again. Boston College also not very good. At least it's at home for Syracuse. I don't know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, it's home game. That always helps. And for Syracuse, just want to make sure I'm not lying here. It's a Friday night game, which we tend to know how Syracuse does at home on Thursdays and Friday nights historically. For me, this is more about Boston College and how Sideline has been right on Boston College for the past few weeks. It said back Boston College against Georgia Tech, got the outright win. It said to take the points with UConn the next week against Boston College, that one. And so the fact that Sideline is telling fairly strongly here, telling us that we lean Syracuse on the money line, I feel like that's telling me something. So I don't want to get too caught up in Syracuse because that will make me feel gross about this pick, but this is more Sideline has been correct on Boston College, and I'm riding the momentum Sideline has with BC.
And the benefit of the player-based model, right, is that we know about some of those injuries. So we've been downgrading Syracuse with this. So it's not like we're just caught with their pants down blindly on this, right? We know some of the injuries, and that's made their rating go down. I mean, when Syracuse was fully healthy earlier in the season, they were up in like the 20s and 30s, flirting at least with the 20s. I know they were at least in the 30s. They were way up there, looking really good. And now they're coming down because they haven't played as well, but also they haven't had half the players, it seems like. The other Friday night game, Colorado State and Wyoming. Right now we'd have a C grade at Wyoming minus 6.5. And again, if you remember, if you're with us at Doug Club, you get the full sheet with all the full metrics on this. So you can kind of print it out and follow along or have it up on another screen. So you can kind of go through this and see as we're going along. Part of what you get there is also the money line projections, the probability team wins, the projected score, projected total, the A grade, B grade price thresholds, offensive, defensive metrics, quarterbacks. I mean, you get all the information here with us over on Dub Club. So again, that sign up link's in the show description. If you're having a hard time following along, what I'm looking at is what you get, and that would probably help a lot. But Wyoming, we'd have a C grade minus 6.5. Models is 13.6. This is one of those that we've talked about. We've just looking at the numbers, the laying the points has just been tough. And I don't think it's so bad that you should just start fading it, just start taking the points with everybody. It's just with laying the points, you just don't know who's looking ahead and who's not looking ahead. And it makes it tough here. Model would like Wyoming. It's just, we have not, I feel like we're 50-50 if we're going to be laying points. So that's why we've got the C grade. Is the grade just indicating the confidence that we have in the value proposition. And I like laying 6.5. I just don't like points. Of all the ones we're going to go through, not that we're laying points officially as anything, as much as just if you were picking one or two spots, is this one that you would pick to lay the 6.5, or is this one where you're just like still not interested, or would you be looking at maybe a money line parlay with this? I mean, we got a lot of options with this number, I think.
Yeah. So I know that I'm probably in the minority here. If Wyoming's like minus 270 or something, I'm going to play a little bit of Wyoming on the money line, just as an outright bet, especially on a Friday with, only the one other game.
Minus 245 right now.
Yeah. So minus 245, technically an A grade.
It would be an A grade. The math on the model says an A grade is 255 minus 255 or better. So it's an A grade. It's just a steep price, and so that's kind of a.
So that's what I'm saying. Like if it was a Friday, like I would probably invest in this on the money line just because there's only 2 games. So sure, give me something that I feel really good about. But yeah, if this were a Saturday game, like 100%, this is a great game to throw into a parlay. What I would say is I feel like Sideline's done fairly well with Colorado State this season, and Wyoming is a tough place to play. Like we've always known that, but this year seems especially so for that to be the case. So it's Wyoming. Could they potentially, win this game by 3 or 4 points? Like 100%. That's on the table. So laying the points, I'm like you, just like don't feel 100% great about it, especially 6.5 minus 120, which is I think what it is right now. Like minus 120. Yeah, I don't feel good about that.
Yeah.
But money line, Wyoming at home, I like it.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's technically an A grade on the money line. It's a steep price. So I know we were about to give out official plays, or people just don't. A lot of people like if you're fine with it, viewer, then hey, minus 245 gets Sideline's full endorsement. I probably will play it at that price. I think you're kind of in the same boat, especially being a Friday night. There's less action. We're a little bit less worried about our capital as much as we're more concerned about the next day with everything. To the Saturday games, UConn and Tennessee, a great potential basketball game here. For football, it will not be. But nevertheless, we have us an A grade play taking a whopping 35 points with UConn. Model says it should be 19. So an A grade play taking all those points. The model's been high on UConn. I think they've been better than people realize hanging around. Tennessee hasn't had quite the offense. I like this pick specifically because Tennessee's defense has been so strong. Their offense has been a little bit far behind. I think it's going to be harder for Tennessee to win this 52-3. I think previous years Tennessee's could put up 52. I'm just not certain this year's Tennessee can put up 52. And if that's the case, that makes it more likely we cover with 35, right?
Yeah, I completely agree. I also like UConn. Sideline loves them, and it's worked out more times for us than against us. 2 things. Number one, Tennessee. We've talked a lot about Tennessee's offense not being as legit this year. I think that is definitely part of it. Like UConn's defense is not one of the worst in the country. And so with the inconsistent Joe Milton, could I see
they're not great, but they're not abysmal.
Yeah. Could I see stretches in this game where Tennessee's offense kind of doesn't get going, whether it's because of inconsistency or lack of interest or anything like that? 11 o'clock game against UConn,
sandwich game, whatever, because Kentucky last week.
Yeah. And so I could see plenty of ways that Tennessee has some just dry spells on offense in this game. And then UConn, feel like we talk about it almost every week. UConn never gives up, seemingly. This seems like a wonderful backdoor spot when Tennessee has their second and third string guys in late in the fourth quarter. And I wouldn't be surprised if UConn gets like 10 points in the fourth quarter and finds a way to cover this.
Yeah. That's all. Let's talk about liking what games we have multiple ways to win, right? We can win just because this game could just be like, 42-10. As the entering the late in the fourth quarter and backups are nobody cares, right? Or it could be 42-3, and all of a sudden it's like, hey, but UConn's got a great shot to get that late touchdown and get us to window. So a couple ways we can win this one. Wisconsin, Indiana, we've been backing Wisconsin the last 2 games with the backup in, and it's worked out well. We backed them 2 weeks ago on the money line, A grade pick, and they got it done. We backed them last week, getting 14.5 at home against Ohio State. Got it done. We aren't on them this week simply because of the same thing we talked about Wyoming. Laying 9 points is just a scary thing to do in college football because you just don't know who's looking ahead, who cares about what college, these kids, you just don't know. But Sideline thinks Wisconsin should be favored by 19. This Indiana team is terrible. Model is just not a huge fan of them. Indiana's done a decent job, I think, of keeping some games closer maybe than they should. But just when you look at their full body of work, it's as much as they've played a couple teams closer than we thought they should have, there are enough warts on them that you have to feel more bad than good about them. So, Cousin Jared, laying 9 or money line, is any of that interesting you at all here?
I think you could talk me into this one, depending on what number is out there on the money line. This feels like one that you could potentially throw into a parlay. I'm not sure what the money line number would be right now, but Indiana is just so bad offensively, and they really cannot run the ball. And that is where Wisconsin has sometimes struggled this year, is stopping the run. Well, don't worry. Indiana still won't be able to run the ball. So laying 9 points with Wisconsin coming off a physical game against Ohio State. I don't know about that, but this seems like a money line parlay candidate for me.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, that I'm making notes here for our money line parlay today against something else we give for our Dub Clubber Shelf. Sometimes 1, sometimes 2 in a week, just depending on what's out there. But this is definitely a candidate for that. And then just to kind of loop back to what I said, like Indiana kind of hung around with Ohio State in the first game of the season. They hung around last week with Penn State, but and they got drilled by Michigan, which is whatever. But I mean, the Akron game, they got smoked by Maryland, and they got smoked at home by Rutgers. I mean, it's just, there's a little bit more concerns, I think, than we could just take away from, hey, last week it was a great game. I think last week said a little bit more about Penn State. We really thought that Penn State would come out a little bit stronger, but clearly there was some sort of hangover effect, physicality effect, whatever, from the previous week. I think that says more about Penn State than it does about Indiana. So Wisconsin's been great to us. So finding a way to back them, I don't think is a bad idea. Given how good they've been to us. Jacksonville State at South Carolina. I swear, Cousin Jared, I looked at this one and I've seen Jacksonville State in my sheet all season long. We've backed them, we've faded them, we've bet totals on them, whatever. And for whatever reason, my brain went, why does the model bring in an FCS game here? I just like my brain just is it's November. And you know, the SEC always loves to schedule them cupcakes in November. Everyone gets one. And so I was just like, oh, why is that keep Jacksonville State, a great season, 7-2. South Carolina, a really depressing season, 2-6. They're obviously not as bad as that record. Every year there's a team or two in the SEC that just catches all the bad breaks and the bad schedule. Obviously the 2-6 team is much better here, right? But it's got to be a tough feeling for them, knowing that they've got to win out to make a bowl. This is not what they had anticipated. Jacksonville State would be going to a bowl if the NCAA didn't have one of the dumbest rules ever.
Yes, that is accurate.
Model's pretty spot on. Just too big of a spread to mess with. Not enough points to be excited about with Jacksonville State, especially because you might get a pissed off South Carolina team. You never really know. But the model would tell you to go over 55. 55 is a key number, so you can kind of go over or under and get the push protection on a key number. But model thinks 60, so the model's saying to go over. Jacksonville State's been a really fast team. South Carolina's a fast team. Model likes over. Are you agreeing with it?
I do agree with it, and this is mostly due to Jacksonville State's pace, which is off the charts. I think that this game is going to go over, not because of efficiency of either of these offense, but just the sheer number of plays.
And Jacksonville State doesn't have a great defense, so that helps too.
And it's not like this is Rich Rodriguez we're talking about here. Like, it's not like he's going to come in here and be like, you know what, we're going to slow this down and we're going to win a defensive game with South Carolina. He's going to be like, hey, how fast can we possibly go? Because that's the only way that we're going to hang in this game. So I think this is going to be like a sheer volume play. I don't think this has anything to do with how good either of these offenses are.
Is this one we're eyeing for another total of the day potentially? We've dropped 2 of them already on TikTok and Instagram.
Yep, this is on the list. I would say
on the list. All right. I was thinking so. Just looking at some pretty big model edge, and I'm with you. Like, you do have to be concerned about betting overs in some of these mismatch games if the weaker team is the fast team, because you say, are they going to still play that fast, or are they going to be like, if we get into a shootout and have on a per possession basis, we're worse. Do we want more possessions, right? But I'm like, Rich Rodriguez is. I think he's like, what are you talking about? Like, I feel like if you walked into his office and said that, he'd be like, GTFO. Like,
There was one game they played recently where they were ahead in the fourth quarter, and it was like, Rich, you can slow this down. You don't still have to keep playing fast. So
Ohio State and Rutgers. Another one where the model's pretty close. Market's at 18.5, model says 16.5. Again, not enough points to get excited about. If I was going to take a side, I probably would take Rutgers, just because you're on the right side of a couple key numbers. Rutgers is going to treat this game more importantly than Ohio State is on the road, but it's not a big enough edge for me to get overly excited about. Are you leaning that direction as well? Are you kind of excited about it, or are you like even less excited than I am?
No, I'm less excited than you are. I think I would actually flip it around, and I would probably lay the points with Ohio State, just because, I mean, this Ohio State defense is
so
legit.
Good.
It is
so
very,
good.
very good. And I mean, just think if they would have had a defense anywhere near this caliber the past few years, we may be talking about different outcomes for them in the college football playoff games.
Yeah.
I like, is Rutgers going to score like 10 points in this game, 13 points in this game? I feel like Ohio State's offense has
Model says 13.
Yeah. So like, I can't remember. I saw this graphic where it's like of all of Ohio State's yards, like Marvin Harrison Jr. and Travion Henderson had like 300 of their like 360 yards of offense at some point in their last game. I think that those two are just going to be too much. I don't think Rutgers is going to score very much. I have enough faith in Ohio State's offense to get to, into the maybe low 30s. And I think that would be enough to cover a number like this.
And see, viewer, we can disagree. We sometimes do. I would say I wonder about Ohio State's been playing a little bit slower this year. Rutgers plays really slow. I wonder if Shiano's going to play the we're going to try to grind this game into as few possessions as possible. I would want to be on the other side of 17. So I'd be more interested in laying 16.5. I think than laying 18.5. But I mean, I think maybe this is where when we disagree on something like this, I think that's maybe the question to ask is, are you more concerned about Rutgers caring more about this game, grinding it to a pulp, trying to make it as low scoring as possible, or are you more concerned about can Rutgers score 10 points, right? And that's the question you have to ask yourself. And do whatever it's you come up with, I think that kind of determines which way you play this. But either way, we're not really strongly saying one way or the other.
No.
Nebraska, Michigan State, we've got an A grade on Michigan State. We talk a lot about like speculating where the model's biased or the model's wrong. All models are wrong. Some models are useful. We've seen sidelines usefulness. We know it's wrong, though.
Yeah.
It's more wrong on some teams than others. The thing is we don't know. We can speculate, and even at the outcomes, we don't even know if we were right or wrong until we get a big enough sample size, right? Because then it becomes a thing where it's like, what if it was just a weird outlier game? Model's been probably too high on Michigan State. I don't know how much we're getting to the point now where it's not speculation. It's kind of just fact. They've got more talent, but it just doesn't come through. It's a little bit like the Las Vegas Raiders situation, at least now firing of Josh McDaniels, where it's like, sure, the guys are there, but like it ain't working. They've also had their own coach situation. Plus odds on Michigan State at home against a Nebraska team that's not great offers us value. That doesn't mean it's going to win. It offers us value because everyone's so down on Michigan State. They aren't going to lose every game, probably. And this Nebraska team's probably not as good as that 5-3 record. That doesn't mean I love the pick, but again, of the picks we hate, they tend to go, like I said, like 7-3. The total, though, the market has this at 34.5. The model says 42.7. 42.7 also seems a little bit high, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Seem a little bit unrealistic for these two teams.
Yeah. And so part of this is I wanted to take this time to caution you viewer that sometimes when Sideline says something, again, Sideline's not always right. And one thing that Sideline for college football, at least, could not take into consideration is weather. And there is going to be some bad weather in the Midwest. And so that is partially what's driving this number, aside from the fact that 42 is probably too high anyway.
42 is probably too high anyway,
So
80 degrees.
There's some weather there. So I specifically said I want to talk about this total because I would say, and there's one other game, I did this as well, like go look at the weather before you dabble in any of these low totals that you're seeing across the Midwest this week. I'm not going to endorse going over whatever it is, 34.5. I'm not going to tell you to do it.
And again, we've talked about this before as well, that the NFL model, I do have weather. There's fewer stadiums. I went and looked up the direction of every stadium. And so I can tell you where the wind's going. I have pull the weather. College, right now I can't. Maybe one day I'll have the ability to, but for now, since I can't put the weather information in the model, we're stuck with kind of manually looking at that. So that's, of course, especially now that we're in November, take all these totals with a grain of salt, check the weather first before you bet any total at this time of year.
And there were literally hunks of ice falling from the sky last night in the MAC game, and pretty sure it went over. So, there are, just because there's terrible weather does not mean that the game's automatically going to go under either. So just
correct. And we talk about this a lot on Discord. Let's remind our viewer, right? The biggest weather issues, number one is actually side to side wind. Number two is rain. Number three is snow. Snow actually doesn't affect it as much as you think until it's a blizzard. The thing with the back game you talked about, it was a blizzard for all of like 2 minutes at halftime. Yeah. And so it didn't, by the second half was clear, right? But you're right. I mean, those were some of the biggest flights I've ever seen on TV in that game. And it was like a blizzard. So yeah, that's the thing you got to check. It's not just bad weather. It's the certain type of bad weather, the direction of the wind, the amount of the rain. The cold can affect it too. If it's 30 degrees, not going to affect it too much, maybe a little bit, right? 20 degrees, 10 degrees, so you got to check all these things out. It's not as simple as bad weather means low points. Anyway, Ohio, Arkansas, Florida. Model is spot on both of these, within 0.4 of a point of the total, within 1.5 points on the side. Cousin Jared, the market has it Florida -6. Model says Florida -7. What is your thought on playing this side?
I like Arkansas here because they fired Dan Enos, and literally I didn't know there was a way to break KJ Jefferson when he was just he's just like this robot, basically like Iron Man or something. And somehow they had found a way to neuter him in this offense. And so I think Arkansas can do great now that they fired their offensive coordinator. I'm only like 20% joking. No, I'm only like 20% joking. When I say that, I think that you're going to get a much better performance from Arkansas here. Florida has been so up and down. This feels like a down Florida game because it's like they play well in the games like Tennessee, where I would have thought that Tennessee would have been able to handle them, and then they just do terribly. Like I think about that Charlotte game. Like you look at what Charlotte's done this season, and Florida only won that game by 2 touchdowns.
Pretty disappointing.
So I want to take the points with Arkansas here. It would be my recommendation.
So Arkansas's pass blocking rates number 87. Their run blocking ranks number 29. That's going to be, I think, the key for Arkansas moving the ball is, can they run effectively? Because Florida has not done well on either side of the line. When you get big offensive lines, they haven't done well. So if Arkansas can control the line of scrimmage and not force themselves into too many passing downs, then I think they'll be, if they could stay ahead of the chain, stay on schedule, right? They'll be able to do a lot more running. They've obviously got the guy in KJ Jefferson, and Florida's not going to handle that quite as well because they don't quite have that down low. The other area that Florida struggled is, of course, on the offensive line. They've done okay at times, but they have really struggled when they've just been manhandled. And that's, of course, the area that Arkansas, I don't know if they can really get after them, but I think there's a lot of ways that game could go. So I think it's going to be really interesting. It's something to note, though, Arkansas's performance now going forward with a new offensive coordinator, how that plays out. Texas A&M Ole Miss. Jake and I cover this one on show. We have an A-grade play on Ole Miss. Cousin Jared, do you have any thoughts on your Fighting Texas Aggies?
I like the under in this game. Obviously, would like it better at 55. So I would definitely say hold out if the number gets to 55. Definitely go under there. But I would even say if this got down to like 52, I'd be like, hey, go under in this game. Ole Miss loves to run the ball. A&M very, very good at stopping the run. They've given up over 100 yards rushing in one game this season. That was against Tennessee.
And morphed back completely into last year's A&M again.
Yes,
I mean, it's just
and like I can't remember. I follow a lot of A&M stuff, and they were like, the offense, except for the first quarter, and except for settling a bunch of field goals in the red zone, the offense was much improved. And it's like, I don't really think that's how that works. You can only focus on the good parts and ignore the first quarter and settling for field goals in the red zone. They had two weeks to get ready for South Carolina, and they gave up like 5 sacks in the first 2 drives of that game. It was embarrassing. So I'm not saying that A&M's offense can't improve, but they had 2 weeks to get South Carolina, 2 weeks to get ready for South Carolina, and couldn't do any pass blocking in the first couple of drives. So forgive me if I think that they're going to come out just super ready to go on offense against Ole Miss. So anyway, like the under, I think Ole Miss is going to have a hard time running the ball against A&M, and I think A&M is going to have a hard time on offense, like usual.
And an Ole Miss defense that's better than North Carolina's. So I'm assuming that you are also endorsing the -155.
I think that's just a little bit too short. Yeah.
Kansas State of Texas. Cousin Jared, I mean, pour one out for the, I don't even know, decade-long, 15-year-long run we had.
Yeah, maybe 15. Yeah, maybe 15.
Every single year, Texas was favored by exactly 7 points more than they should be in this game. We took advantage of it. Sometimes we'd sprinkle money line, and I mean, I feel like we were like 14-1 or something. I don't know what the exact record was. And Kansas State, when they lost, they would lose close and cover most of them. It probably isn't as good as I'm remembering. I'm probably put rose-colored glasses or whatever. But I mean, my goodness, it's the model's right on target here. Markets Texas -4. Model says 4.1. I really think this is all about Quinn Ewers. I think that's where Texas is overvalued. He's not that good. The market thinks he's like Caleb Williams-esque, and he's not. We're on the same page with the backup. I'm sad. I still feel like we should take Kansas State just like as a ode to old times, but it's not a model play. Unfortunately, we did already give this out as the over as the total of the day on TikTok. So I don't know if you have anything to add to that or talk about the site. Anything to add?
No, I think it's exactly what you said. Ewers is overrated, and so I think this total is reflecting that he is overrated. And I think that honestly, there should probably not be much difference in the total from Ewers starting versus who is it? It's not Murphy. Who is it?
Malik Murphy is the guy who played last week. There was talk of if the other guy, whatever his name is, that one. There was talk of would he play. That he didn't. I don't know if he will going forward. Murphy wasn't great last week. My concern, I'm living with a Texas grad and fan now. The concern I had watching Murphy is that Sark was like, we aren't going to change our game plan. We're still going to pretend he's a great quarterback. And I'm like, well, that was a problem in the first place because you didn't have a great quarterback with Quinn Ewers. And now they're still doing the same thing. And I'm like, the whole time you've got a great running back. I think their running back grades out like the third best running back in my model. And it's like rounding error to second. And I felt like the game plan should change, be a little more conservative. You got a good defense and they're just like slinging it around. I'm like, that's, I think the only concerning part with Texas. Honestly, it's why I'd be backing Kansas State if I was picking a side on this, just because I don't think they know what they're doing as a coaching staff, and they're not really utilizing their players properly, in my opinion. They didn't last year. They had two of the best running backs in college football, and they botched it all year long without maximizing those guys. So anyway, that's my end rant on that one. Either way, we're playing the over officially. So
yep. And
we love us some Avery Johnson.
Yes, and this was literally cents away from being a B grade pick on the Kansas State money line earlier this week. It has since come down a little bit. Texas money is unpredictable. I would say keep an eye on keep an eye on the Kansas State money line. You best believe if this gets to 176 or whatever sideline says
it's 170, 177 is the right now B grade threshold for it, and the market is at 155. So right now we're 27 cents away.
Yeah. So again, if it gets anywhere close, I'm probably going B grade money line on Kansas State.
I would endorse that. Notre Dame and Clemson. Jake and I covered this one on the show. We have a B grade pick on Notre Dame because you like the Notre Dame pick that Jake and I had.
I love the Notre Dame pick, and new audience here this week going out to everybody. So this is where I always say, sign up on Dub Club, get access to these numbers right away. Let's say that you might be able to have grabbed Notre Dame at -130. At open. And so, just the benefits of being a Dub Club member, some of these extreme value plays you can get right when they open, and it's worth, the less than $1 a day that it costs to sign up. You'll get it back in one play where you get huge value at the opening line.
You are a better marketer than I am, considering I'm terrible at marketing, but it's a great reminder that I post all the projections on Sunday afternoon. So as those opening lines come out, I mean, you can get them pretty dang early and get some pretty good value there. That's a good -130. I mean, I'm looking at my ticket of -165 going, I'd love to have -130. It's even better. That would have been a great value. So you would have been able to jump on and a fantastic premium there. Georgia Tech, Virginia. That's our second total today. We've already locked in earlier in the week over on TikTok and Instagram, giving those out to people. Do you have anything to add to that? Because do you watch the video? Do you just give the picks, or do you actually watch the videos? Do you even know what I said in those videos?
No.
Okay, well, I said some things. You can say them now if you want about why we like this over.
Yeah, sure. And the reason that I love this over is, have people not been watching? these two teams play. Yeah. Like that's really all I can say is there's something that the numbers just aren't getting. The books are not setting these lines correctly. And whether it's just been the skill of these offenses or just like they've found ways to get in, both of these teams haven't found weird ways to get into these high scoring games. I don't know what it is, but like every week with these two teams, it's gone over. Would not have believed in a million years I would be saying that Virginia would be a hard over team. Yeah. But they are. And so like this is just one of those things. The totals have been missing by so much of these two teams. I'm going over until one of them doesn't.
Yeah, and the model
that's kind of what I'm going to say.
The model thinks it should be going higher. It's been climbing all week. We locked in 58 just because that's obviously the low end of those key numbers. So we got all the right outcomes there in the upper 50s and low 60s, which is where the model thinks it is. I kind of said the same thing basically. Like coming into the season, we would have thought these are two under teams. You know, this would have been like a 20-13 type game, but that's just not how either one of them has played. So, like you said, have you been watching these teams? Navy and Temple. Candidate for the worst team of the week here, number 126 and number 132 according to the model. We got an A grade play on Temple +7. Temple is terrible at falling like a dang rock in the model, and we faded them a few times here lately. So this is not a situation where the models just some models will just take bad teams or whatever. We faded Temple against SMU. I believe in that game, or maybe we had the total now, but we faded them maybe the week after that. I guess we faded them here recently. Back in here with an A-grade play at home. It's just that we're not impressed with Navy either.
Yep.
It's kind of really the summary of this one, right?
Yep. That is basically the summary. We don't like Navy. Obviously, you know, Navy doesn't run the type of offense that is necessarily going to win a game by a bunch of points. I think there is, and depending on where this line is at now, we locked this in on Sunday at 7. Again, if you got it open, 7.5. And so if this were like 6.5, like I think there's maybe a little less value there just because doubt there's going to be very many field goals in a game involving Navy, or at least the potential to have field goals is lower in a game with Navy. So anyway, this is all about getting a touchdown at home against a bad team, ignoring the fact Temple also very bad. But again, getting a touchdown at home against a bad team.
Yeah. And we faded in week 7. We faded Temple with an A-grade play on UNT. UNT won that game by 31. The next week, we almost took SMU. I think you and I were debating between laying it with SMU and laying it with
Kansas State. I can't remember.
I can't remember someone else, and we ended up going with the under in that one and won that. So we faded Temple here. So it's not like we're on Temple. Temple coming off a bye week as well, which can't hurt matters.
Right.
I'm not saying it's going to help anything.
It cannot be worse than the last game they played.
It cannot be worse than how bad they, in the last 2 games, because they got dropped by UNT as well. It can't be worse. Whatever that means. Sometimes you got to back bad teams and just plug your nose and play it. Arizona State and Utah. Model would say lay it with Utah. Arizona State's been playing better. Arizona State's been a weird team this year. Utah's been a weird team this year. I mean, both these teams have. This is a quintessential Pac-12 network game of I don't know what we're going to do. The total is 41.5. Model says 50. Arizona State can play in a higher scoring game. Utah doesn't really want to, but who knows what's going to happen with them. Arizona State wants to go fast. Utah wants to go slow. Where's your head on this total? Big model discrepancy, whatever that's worth.
And I think that's worth not much. Because generally when we see huge discrepancies like this, it's because the books know something, or like, I don't know. I again, sideline says strong overplay. I don't trust Utah's offense necessarily. Arizona State has been playing much better as of late. It's like ever since that game at home against USC, where they were competitive with USC for a while, that gave them some confidence or something. They played Washington close. They haven't exactly won a lot of these games. I think they did win last week, I believe. But before that, they hadn't won very many of these games, but they had just been a lot more competitive. And so, like, I think there's a great opportunity or great chance that this game, like, Utah, not built to blow teams out necessarily. I know they're at home, so like I definitely think they're going to win the game, but not built to blow teams out. Arizona State's been playing much better. I think they're getting some confidence. So I don't want to lay the points with Utah. But But no matter how I slice it, I think this game's going to be low scoring. And even though there's a huge edge here, it's not something that I'm just jumping at.
It's tough because with Utah specifically, they've been a lower scoring team, a stronger defense, a grinded out type team. And then last year with Cam Rising, and they just lit it up offensively, took a step back defensively. Now, like, they're kind of caught in between, it seems like a little bit, where like they've still got some good offensive pieces. Barnes has been okay. Defense is better, but it's like I just don't know what I'm getting with Utah at this point. They're just a weird team at this point. Army, Air Force. We have loved us some Air Force lately. We have backed them so much. Unfortunately, I feel like when you get to the Academy games, we actually leaned backing them against Navy, and they did cover barely. Now, though, it's a spread of 18. Model says 18.4. Has the market finally caught up to us in our Air Force love? I mean, we love some Air Force.
This has to be an overreaction to Army losing to UMass. Now, there is no excuse for Army to lose to UMass. I do not want to put that out there. But come on, 2 Academy teams. Are you serious? 18.5 points? 18 points? This is ridiculous. This is absolutely ridiculous. Take the points with Army. This is ridiculous.
I have to agree. I cannot believe we're here because the model has been backing Air Force simply because the market has refused to believe how good Air Force is. And now, like you said, I think there's some interaction with maybe the market's finally catching up / overreacting to Army looking terrible. And the week before, Army looked terrible. I mean, they've looked really bad. Make no bones about it. But gosh, like you said, I'm like you, like the Academy games, like they just never. The way Air Force covers this is Army could win this game 35 zip. To me, it's either 35 zip or Army covers. There's like no in between. Like it's one of those where Army's just going to get 0 first downs and just 3 and out every single time, and Air Force is going to get 5 touchdowns because they're eventually going to be able to score. Or
I may even take it a step further and say that the only way Army doesn't cover this game is if they have multiple turnovers on their side of the field. Like that is almost the way I think that you don't cover this, is you've got to give Air Force super short fields. This was great to talk about this. Did you see that Akron won? Akron came back and won.
They were almost a B grade play for us.
Oh my God. The MAC.
They were favored. They were favored.
I love the MAC. I love MACtion and I hate it. Like if I were backing not Akron, I would have like turned that game, like Kent State, I would have turned that game off a long time ago. Thought I had this in the bag. MACtion is the craziest thing there is, man.
It is. How about some Fun Belt then? Louisiana, Arkansas State. We've been really high on both of these teams. Louisiana has been really good to us. Arkansas State's been good to us. I hate when these two teams play each other, but we're going to be on the side of Arkansas State here, getting 9 points. It's a B grade value. Model thinks it should be 6.6. Projects an average score of 31-24. Hey, sign me up for 31-24. That seems pretty reasonable, right?
It does. Personally, I am waiting on this one just to see if it gets to 10. I don't know if it will, but I'm just
it's at 9.5 now.
Yeah, I'm just waiting just to see. I'll take 9.5 on Saturday or some Friday or Saturday if I need to, but just waiting to see if it will get to 10. This Louisiana team, like, they're just in every game. I don't think they're ever going to win by a ton of points. I don't think they're ever going to lose by a ton of points. They're just kind of going to be around in every game. And so, and this Arkansas State defense, while still not good, is not nearly as bad as it has been the past couple of years.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And so, like, I think it's going to be really difficult for Louisiana to win by more than double digits in this game.
South Florida and Memphis. This is a big model edge because in Jared, another situation where if you're laying points with anybody, is this one of the few that you might consider it? Laying 13.5 with Memphis when the model says 25. Again, we hate laying points. So I mean,
I hate laying points. The thing is that South Florida's defense is garbage. It is garbage.
And they play fast, which makes it worse.
Yes,
compounding it.
And North, you could look back at Memphis. to last week against North Texas and say Memphis had that one in the bag easily until they didn't, and then had to come back.
Lost.
Yeah, and should have lost, and then somehow still came back and won. But even as easily as Memphis went through that North Texas defense, the North Texas defense is still better than the South Florida defense. And so South Florida's defense is just really bad. Memphis at home, I think they have a great chance to cover this game. I think they're going to be able to score at will. And again, at home, I think they'll be able to get enough stops against South Florida to where they can cover a number like this. And literally just take the first 3 quarters of that North Texas Memphis game. Just play that way for like another 7 minutes. And you will cover this easily against South Florida.
Yeah. Is Memphis minus 550 a good maybe team number 2 candidate for the parlay of the day?
Yes, I like that.
I think that's the second one. I'm trying to keep track of them as we go through. I think that is the second one that we've had that I would be thinking about for that one when the time comes. Another Texas battle here. UTSA at North Texas here in my backyard. Model spot on with regards to the side, but you've indicated that's what you want to talk about. So what do you got? Because the model's not helping you out at all. 7.5 is the number right now.
You can get North Texas plus 260.
As soon as you started talking, I was like, I know exactly where he's going with this.
You can get North Texas at plus 260 on the money line.
So it would be a B grade.
Yeah, and so that would be my direction here. Would be North Texas on the money line. I don't think points do you any good in this game. I think there's going to be about 1 million points.
And last week, North Texas covered but didn't win.
Yeah,
I just have to point that out.
Yes, I'm aware. But the total here, the line is 72.
72.
Wouldn't go under.
No.
and I just don't know if the points are going to matter, especially since Frank Harris is back. I feel like UTSA has been playing a lot better as of recent. But this North Texas team is nothing to shake a stick at. I mean, you were one of the first people that talked about when they made the change of quarterback. All of a sudden, they went from being just fast and inept to fast and okay. Competent. And they run so many plays that really helped.
Their offense is above average. Their offense is better than UTSA's according to the model now. That quarterback change made all the difference in the world.
Yeah.
And again, that's, folks, player-based model. That's why I built this. That's why I went years ago. I remember years ago, I'll never forget having a conversation with my dad about sports betting things. And I was like, if I had the time, I would build this, but I have to build this player-based model. I didn't have time. And then as I got in academia, having time to do it, this is what I envisioned was this, because you've got to be able to have these, the ability to find these things out. And we knew from the start when they, 1 week of data from that, it was like, this offense actually is competent now. That's not just a fluke. And sure enough, that Cal game was just miserable. They're actually decent on offense. Now their defense is terrible, but their offense is actually okay. I love backing this North Texas team. Any way I can. I hope that they don't look too good this week because I want to be able to back them next week. I don't want the market to catch up just yet.
Yep. And so to you, viewer, especially those of you on Dub Club, I hope that I'm not saying that I interpret all of Sidelines data perfectly. That's not what I'm saying at all. But look at it right here on the point. The points, Sideline says there's not much of an edge. Logically, you think about it, projected to be so many points in this game, getting 7.5, not as valuable as it would be in most other games. While still valuable, not as valuable as it may be in most other games. And you can look and say, hey, there is a B grade on the money line for North Texas, which seems like this game could be variable. And so, sure, so sign me up. I will definitely be dabbling on the North Texas money line. Come Saturday for sure.
It's a great thing to remind people of here, especially as we enter college basketball season, where we're going to be doing a little bit of this too. It's never fun if you take one plus 250 dog, because you're kind of just, you win or lose, right? But if you can identify, 5 plus 250 dogs, you probably win 2 of them. And you're going to make money winning 2 out of 5 at plus 250. That's kind of where this is. Who knows if they're going to actually pull it out? But if you can find 5 of them that are pretty similar, you win 2 of them. It's a great situation. So, and you could do that on a Saturday of college football, and you can do that in college basketball as well. So many games. So, just something to kind of plant a seed there and be thinking about. FAU, UAB. Jake and I covered this one on show. We had an A grade on FAU. I don't know what you have to add to that discussion.
Not much. UAB, not great. Florida Atlantic. Why do we seem to be the only people that are enamored with Florida Atlantic? I don't.
It's us and us against the world. We love us in FAU.
Yeah, we do. The fighting Tom Herman's. And this is more for me of Florida Atlantic is relatively solid all around, like not spectacular, but they don't like have a just horrific glaring weakness, as opposed to, I think, the UAB defense, which actually I'll look at it. That's not necessarily the case. I guess where I'm going with this, I don't have any faith in UAB defense. Like when push comes to shove, I don't trust UAB to get a stop when they need it. Whereas I say the opposite with Florida Atlantic. I trust them to get a stop whenever they need one. So.
And I think I pointed this out. You and I were talking about it. We've had Florida Atlantic has met the A grade threshold in 3 of their last 5 games. And in all 3, they have won. The other 2 games, we had a D grade fading them. So 2 of the last 5 games, we've said, hey, we're in lockstep with the market and we're not touching FAU, and they lost. The other 3, we were like, there's a lot of value here, and they won. Now, it's not obviously that simple. And again, I'm not trying to – it is about large sample sizes, et cetera. But, like, we're starting to build up a decent sample size with FAU. And who knows what will happen this game, et cetera. But this will make 4 of the last 6 weeks now A-grade value. And the other 2 that we said to stay off of, one was UTSA. I don't remember what the other was. We were like, it's not really worth it.
Yeah.
FAU takes care of business against these weaker teams. I love this. Jake said it was his favorite play of the week as well. Coastal Carolina, ODU, Jared Guest. That's our new quarterback for Coastal Carolina. We're presuming that Grayson McCall is out. Tim Beck has said they are moving forward as if he's not coming back this season, presumably ever, I guess. He has not been medically cleared. So all signs are, I'm treating it as that. If viewer, you're with us on Dub Club here, shoot me a message if we find out otherwise. But I have removed Grayson McCall from the college football world. He didn't even exist anymore in my world because we don't think he's going to be there. So Jared Guest, quarterback, still better than Old Dominion's Grant Wilson, based off of what limited data we have for him. Coastal Carolina, we backed him last week. There was just a massive overreaction to losing McCall. McCall, we talked about it, hasn't been that good this year. He hasn't really been that helpful, whether it's him, offense. We don't really know. But Coastal's taking a step back. He's taking a step back. They don't really lose a ton going to the backup, which is crazy to say. I would, if you pulled us from 12 months ago and said Grayson McCall's going, I'd be like, "Ooh, man, you got to drop Coastal like at least a touchdown."
Yeah.
It's like 2 points. I mean, it ain't much. I still think we're overreacting. We got Coastal Carolina road should be favorite -110. I love backing Coastal.
Yeah. So I think, and I think we talked about this when we mentioned it there, that McCall has a specific set of skills that the new coaching staff wasn't utilizing in the same way that previous guy was. So while I'm blanking on his name, the guy at Liberty. That was kind of the end of that. But Guest has been okay. And when you're playing Old Dominion, I know they've won a couple of games here as of recent, 4-4, but Coastal still the much better team. And when you've got so quarterback play with a team like Coastal against Old Dominion, sure, sign me up. Short favorite, even though it's on the road, short favorite. I like it. Yeah.
UCF on the road against Cincinnati. Jake and I talked about this on the show. We're not going to be juked by UCF last week. There were a lot of turnovers. Jonas won 3 interceptions, career high. That's not what he normally does. And we don't have any faith in Cincinnati. You don't have any faith in Cincinnati. You are on them. They're under for the entire season. So I'm sure you're happy to play UCF in the spot.
Love it. Everything that you said. And I wish that just wish I could remember every week I bet against Cincinnati on the season for a reason. And, we said that on Saturday. We were like, oh yeah, we don't like Cincinnati. And we had an A grade on them going to Oklahoma State. We were like, that probably wasn't a good choice. And true enough, it wasn't a good choice.
Mistakes were made.
Yes,
it happens.
Yes,
we're not perfect.
They were. So yeah, we'll stick with UCF.
Florida State, Pittsburgh. I mean, Florida State should handle them. Florida State, fantastic. You got them up to number 4.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say. I mean, they're very good. I mean, their defense is the only question mark. The offense is not a question mark. The defense is still really good, but the defense won't be tested against Pittsburgh. So, I mean, we aren't going to learn anything about them. They should roll pretty handily. The only question is by how much. Model says 24, market is 21.5.
Yeah. So here's the thing. Please tell me that everybody heard what Pat Narduzzi said after the game last week.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, where he was like, we were supposed to, he
said
we got players.
He said we lost a lot of players last year and we thought we'd be able to replace them, but apparently we weren't.
Yeah.
And it was like, whoa.
Yeah. And then he said, and then he tried to backtrack and he's like, and that's on me as a coach because blah, 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 blah. And it's like, well, no, that doesn't negate the first part of what you said, insinuating that your players aren't good, which don't get me off on a
it's like the whole you can't just say whatever you want after, with all due respect. Right?
Yeah. Well, but don't get me started here though, because Deion Sanders was asked something similar at a press conference earlier this week after Shedeur was hit approximately 57 times in the game against UCLA, which I called, by the way.
Yeah.
And he was like, well, we're just going to have to get better players on the offensive line. So like when Deion says it, everybody's like, look at that, Deion being transparent. And Pat Narduzzi says it, and it's like, he can't. Why is he talking to the players like that? He's losing the locker room. So anyway, double-edged sword with Deion as always. But
I was to say Deion did his own. I feel like Deion and Saban. There's a few guys that are kind of just like Belichick, right? That would just be in their own kind of category that they can say things that other coaches can't get away with, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure nobody watching this has any opinions on Deion.
No, of course not. So anyway, I think that Florida State's going to blow them out, because I think half of these Pitt players may be like, screw this, I'm done. When does the transfer window open? So yeah, I love Florida State in this game.
Yeah, I heard that. I was like, oh wow. And then I don't know if you saw on Twitter, on X, at least like a dozen players quote tweeted the guy who tweeted out from the press conference the exact quote, with emojis and with like, oh, okay, that's how it is. I mean, the players immediately on social media. Yeah. Maryland hosting Penn State. Cousin Jared, is Penn State broken? I mean, let's start off with that. Like, they were looking so good, and then they really stubbed their toe, just could not get going against Ohio State, which I thought was about Ohio State's defense. And oh boy, it did not look good last week against a really bad Indiana team.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I'm going to chalk that up to hangover from the loss at Ohio State, and knowing how much Penn State puts into the 2 games a year against Ohio State and Michigan, and knowing if they don't win at least one of those games, like literally what is their season aside from every other season they've had the past 5 or 6 years.
Right. And of course, now I'm going to say this, we can say this from our couches, but we knew coming into the season that Michigan was the game they wanted to win, because that was the home game, whereas Ohio State was the road game. So like we kind of knew from the start that one wasn't the one they needed as much. Of course, we do think Michigan's probably the better team between the two. I don't know.
I would agree with that.
But also counterpoint to that. Last year, October 15th, Michigan beats Penn State 41-17. Next week, Penn State beats Minnesota 45-17. Next week, Ohio State beats Penn State 44-31. Next week, Penn State wins at Indiana 45-14. It could still be that this year was supposed to be the year it was different, so it could be taking a bigger mental toll. So we don't know, right? I'm just I'm nervous. I'm nervous for this Penn State offense.
Well, okay. So that's just what I was about to say, though. Ohio State's defense, great. Indiana's defense, not the best, but like Indiana just plays a style of football where they're going to ugly things up, and it doesn't matter. They're still going to lose, but they're going to like play an ugly brand of football. It's not going to be
if Indiana does anything well, it's going to be uglying it up. They might get smoked, but if they play well, it's going to be the defense, not the offense. The offense has no hope, basically.
Yes, and I think
the offense still scored on Penn State too. I don't know, man.
Yeah, and so Maryland, I just don't think is. I think Maryland is much more of a finesse team and everything. Taking the 10.5 points with Maryland, that's fine with me. I also kind of like the over here, because I think that
model likes the over too.
Yeah, I think Maryland defense fine by Big 12 standards, but not Ohio State, and not going to be a super ugly game like Indiana, not in a hangover spot right now. So I kind of like the over in this game. I think this is the game where Penn State's offense gets reasonably back on track. I think Maryland's offense is good enough to put up some points on Penn State, which could get over a number like 51, especially being at the bottom of all those key numbers in the 50s. This is one of those where it's like 51.5, 52. I don't think I'd like it as much as 51.
All right. Tulane, ECU. Tulane's a big favorite. Model says 23. Market says 17.5. Is this one that you can lay with? I mean, ECU is terrible. The only fear with laying points is you never know who's going to show up where on the road. Yeah. Could you lay 17.5 with Tulane?
So I need to do my research here. Let's see, what is Tulane minus 750? That's really steep. Tulane is a money line parlay type potential play, depending on what you could get it at. Minus 750. That's pretty steep, but I don't necessarily want to lay points with Tulane. Like, they're good, but also what incentive do they have to run it up?
After last year's really successful season, they've had a couple games this year where they haven't really played a full 60 minutes against inferior opponents. They've kind of played down to some teams. We've seen, and that's the fear here with laying a big number. That's why I just think laying numbers in college football is. You got to really try to pick your spots, in my opinion. We tried it, and it not worked for us, so we're just going to be like, look, let's just stick to what's working, right? Money lines and underdogs. That's what's working. We're going to stick to that. Louisville against Virginia Tech. Model says it should be Louisville minus 20. I'm really high on this Louisville team. I'm still not buying Virginia Tech. They are starting to play better, though, and Drones is looking more competent by the week. I know he was a guy we all thought had potential and really kind of took him a while to get here. Could you lay it with Louisville? Could you lay 9.5 with Louisville? Coming off that big win last week.
Yeah, I think I would still lay the points with Louisville, especially at home. Like, it's one thing for Virginia Tech to do to Syracuse what they did at home.
Virginia Tech.
Yeah, at Blacksburg. I don't know if that translates to the road. Obviously, Louisville, a much better team than Syracuse. I just like everything about everything that I've seen from this Louisville team this year. It's like, hey, you get rid of Scott Satterfield, and all of a sudden your team's better. And Cincinnati's like,
and you bring in a pretty good coach yourself.
Yeah, well, of course, that has a big part to do with it. But yeah, everybody at Cincinnati's like, what were we thinking? Why did we hire Satterfield? Anyway, yeah, I think I would lay it with Louisville. I'm like you. I don't love it. This is what Virginia Tech team's getting warm, I would say. So don't love it, but I like this. Like, if I had to say lay 9.5 with Louisville, or like the game we just talked about, lay 17 or 17.5 with Tulane, I would rather lay the 9.5 with
this.
Louisville.
This might be my favorite of the week. So I points, and here's why. Because let me tell you, on the road, Louisville has won by 5, won by 7, won by 3, lost by 17. Louisville is 0-4 against this number.
On the road.
At home, I'm going to throw out Murray State. 1 by 28, 1 by 13, 1 by 23. Covered this number every time. And at home, they played Notre Dame and Duke. So it's not like they've just got all the tough teams on the road.
Right.
Playing better at home than on the road. So if I had to lay it with anybody, this might be the one. This one's probably going to be in the Moneyline parlay as well, just because I see it being very tough for Virginia Tech to go on the road here and get this win. I like this Louisville team a lot.
Yeah, and technically an A grade on the money line if like minus 375, minus 380, minus 390 is something. So yeah, I like that.
Technically an A grade on the money line. Again, we don't like to do those plays because I know a lot of people don't like them, but it will be in that Moneyline parlay today to make sure people get a little coin on it. But again, if you're going to lay points, this one might be my favorite. Iowa Northwestern, A grade on Iowa. Kind of firing their offensive coordinator. He kind of resigned, but he's kind of still there. I don't know. Here's the thing. Northwestern's offense isn't much better, but Iowa's defense is like breaking the model just for how good they are. It's obviously sad what would happen if they had to think about if they had a competent offense. Here's the funny thing, Cousin Jared and I talked about this here this week. It's been reported, and so I've recirculated this news. Not a single team in the Big Ten West is averaging 25 points a game. So it's not like it's just Iowa. The whole Big Ten West is terrible. We got an in Iowa, whatever. It is what it is. Northwestern, not very good. This game's being played in a Wrigley Field. So that's something else to keep note of. Whether it's Northwestern or Wrigley, both of those stadiums are right on the lake. And so you could have massive wind issues in November. I haven't checked the weather. I don't know if you have, but model would say go over, but that's ignoring the weather. And I'm guessing it's not going to be great weather in Chicago in November.
Yeah, actually, the weather doesn't look too bad right now on Saturday, but still not going over.
Just the teams look bad.
Yeah, and if you're telling me that there is a game where the total is 30.5 and Iowa is participating, I'm going to pick Iowa to win every time.
That's their game.
Yes, that is their game. This was the other one that I mentioned before. I noted there's a discrepancy. 30.5 seems like a little number. Wouldn't tell you to go over.
Here's what I'm going to say about this over. Northwestern's defense is worse than we've seen it in years past. And their offense is better. Not that their offense is good, but their offense is less bad because it's been dreadful. Northwestern's playing at about an average pace. this total to me is set like it's last year's Northwestern and not this year's Northwestern. That being said, maybe last year's total should have just been 25. And this year they finally got it right at 30.5. That's what the model's seeing in this, is the model saying, look, Northwestern has one of the weaker defenses and that Iowa's going to play, and Iowa might actually score some points on them. You wonder, is Iowa going to score a few more points in a game now where the offensive coordinator is like, well, I'm already leaving. Like, let's go out with a blaze of glory. Like, or do you think he's going to go even more Iowa on them? That's the thing. I wouldn't touch this total just because there's that massive element. Like, or is he going to be like, now that I don't have points, like I get to do what I want, which is like run the ball every play, run the play clock down every time to 1, right? Like what's going to happen? Like, I have no idea what they're going to do. It was such a weird situation to start with, right? But either way, we still like Iowa to win. They're a much better team. It's not even close. Now their offense is bad, but offensively, these two teams both are terrible. But defensively, I mean, it is not even close. The odds imply it is. It's not. James Madison, Georgia State. James Madison up to 37 in sideline. Models kind of coming around to him. The offense is still below average, and that's what's keeping them from Troy level, because their defense is not far from Troy. The offenses are the difference. Troy's a little bit above average. James Madison a little bit below average. But obviously, James Madison, just an incredible story to come from where they were at FCS and now be in the top 40 here from a predictive model. Resume wise, they're in the top 25. They deserve that as well. I mean, can't say things. Georgia State, though, hey, let's give them some praise too from the struggles they've had the last couple of years. 6-2, bowl eligible. It should be a good game. Model's pretty in lockstep with the market on this one, but you have something you want to talk about on the side. So what do you got?
This just feels like the type of game that James Madison wins. Like, their defense is really good by Sun Belt standards. And like, Georgia State has been good this season, but there's just the games where it's like, they're favored and they find a way to lose, or like the offense disappears at times. And if the offense is going to disappear at times against James Madison, it's not going to work out for you. So is James Madison going to go undefeated? That's going to be difficult. But I don't think it's this game that they lose.
I think we also saw a little bit last Thursday, Georgia State against Georgia Southern. And the model's been high on Georgia Southern and liked Georgia Southern then. And you saw that Georgia State is much improved, and I like them, but Georgia Southern's a tier above them. James Madison's a tier above that. And in my opinion, Troy's a tier above that. The model's opinion. But I like Georgia State. It's just the Sun Belt's a solid conference. The old Sun Belt, this Georgia State team probably the best team in the conference. But as it is, they got thumped last week, and I don't see how this is any different against James Madison to get thumped as well. Model doesn't see an edge. Would have a D grade pick on James Madison minus 215, but. Because Jerry, do you think it's probably still worth looking into money line probably? Because I know I've converted you to being a money line kind of guy.
Yep.
Illinois, Minnesota. We got Minnesota as an A grade pick. I don't know. This seems as simple as how many times, because Jared, have you said that this Illinois team isn't last year's team? They're not that good. Their defense is terrible, right?
You said everything that
terrible relative to what it was last year. It's not. It's average. It's just last year it was like top 5. This year.
What the other thing that I would say is that Minnesota substantially a very slow paced team. Illinois actually fairly above average, like well above average in pace. And Minnesota's offense still rates way above the Illinois offense. This Illinois offense has really been bad. You mentioned the defense relative to Power 5 standards. Illinois' defense hasn't been great. Their offense has been even worse. This Illinois team is just
to have a below average efficiency offense as a Power 5 school it just doesn't bode well for you. And that's what we see from the Northwesterns, and you expect, or even Iowa's offense, right? But it puts you in not good category. So A grade pick on Minnesota. We had that one on the free show early in the week. Houston at Baylor. We have a B grade pick on Baylor. Look, we almost took Kansas State last week against Houston. The reason we didn't lay the points with Kansas State last week, we were just a little bit concerned with Houston. We took them against Texas. We didn't know if that would give them newfound confidence and play better, or if they would be a little bit hungover and struggle against Kansas State. The answer was definitely the latter. I don't think Houston's very good. I think Houston and Cincinnati are the 2 worst teams in the Big 12.
Mm-hmm.
I think Baylor's the 3rd worst team in the Big 12. At home, Baylor should win this game.
Mm-hmm.
But this Baylor team is just Jekyll and Hyde. And it's like that in the games. And Houston's kind of the same way. Neither one of these teams has a good defense whatsoever. Both of these teams have stretches offensively where they look competent, and then they have stretches offensively where they're just like, what are you doing? What is even your whole point? They both go fast, so there should be points.
That's about the best we could say. So I am going over here. I like the over in this game, and this feels very much. I mentioned that I liked Houston to cover against Texas there because I said it was like the Arkansas game. There's going to be like a lot of fans that are upset. Everybody hates Texas, blah, 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 blah. I think you're going to get a lot of like from the Houston perspective. And I know like these kids weren't even born when this happened, but they're going to be like, it should have been Houston that went to the Big 12 when the Southwest Conference was disbanded. It shouldn't have been Baylor.
TCU held on to that for a long time.
Yes. And so I think you're going to see the same thing from Houston. I definitely agree with you. Baylor's a better team. I think Baylor's going to win, but I think this game is going to get crazy. Like, I think that there's going to be unpleasantries on both sides. Like, you just – let me tell you, you just thought that the TCU people were bad. Wait till you get some of the Houston players. Like, it's not going to be pretty. So anyway, I'm sure there'll be more than enough Baptist jokes from the Houston fans that are going to the game.
This number's at 58. Like we talked about with the Georgia Tech Virginia game, 58 is the number you want to lock in. It's been climbing all week. This is one of those kind of, hey, I would just take it now. Don't wait. If when we get to another video, I think is another total of the day candidate as long as it hangs in the area, right? Is that correct?
Okay. Yep. I would say that.
Yeah. Bedlam. Speaking of bad blood, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma's defense taking a step back. I mean, really was rising up and looking like maybe a top 10 unit. It's slowly creeping back, not looking as good. Oklahoma State's defense has never been there. Oklahoma State's moving in the right direction. They keep looking impressive. This is it. This is the culmination of it here. Can they, if they win this game, I think the, hey, we're back, is complete for Oklahoma State. Model thinks they're going to get thumped. Model says OU by 16. With a lot of points, 63 points on average. I don't know. I kind of think laying it with Oklahoma makes sense. It's 6 right now, and here's why I would lay it. It's not. I don't think it's quite my favorite of Louisville, but I kind of like laying it. Here's why. I kind of think this game on the road, either Oklahoma State wins or I think OU runs up the score and wins in a blowout. I don't really think there's much in between. So, and there's not really a lot of numbers in between. So we talk about, we love money lines, but I mean, 6, I think makes a lot of sense to lay in this game because I could see easily Oklahoma winning this, 42-32 or 52-32 or 62-32, right? Who knows what it would be. Total 61. That's on the south side of your low 60 key numbers. Would you tell people to go over given what we've seen from these two teams as of late?
Yeah. So 2 things. I like the over 61. Number 1, because you saw what Kansas was able to do against Oklahoma last week with a ground-focused attack. And number 2, Ollie Gordon, very good for Oklahoma State. Seems super legit. I would not have thought that after what I saw from Oklahoma State against Arizona State early this year.
And South Alabama.
Yeah, when they were playing 15 quarterbacks, and then, like you said, South Alabama only scored 7 points or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But Oklahoma State has gotten into a rhythm with their offense. And funny enough, I mentioned it. I remember in one of the preseason shows that Gundy was like, I think with these new clock rules, it's really going to benefit the teams that can run the ball a lot. And I really want to focus on running the ball. And the first couple of weeks of the season, you were like, I don't think that's working out for you. Hey, but it looks like it is now. And so anyway, I like over 61. Would it not be fitting that with these two teams and the games that they have played over the years, that this game has 80 points.
It's got to go out with a bang, not with a whimper, right?
Yes, exactly. I don't want to say that we're owed anything, but
we are. With all the crazy we are owed this thing.
Yes, we are owed a game that ends in the 80s for these two teams. I feel like.
Yeah, I'm like you. I like the over. I'm not throwing OU into the Monday Night Parlay. Model would say to do it, but I just think there's too much it's a high variance game. And so in a high variance game, I'm either taking the dog on the money line Model says lay the points, so that's the direction I'm going. But those are, I would tell you, one or the other. Either just lay the points or take the dog on the money line. I think OU, much better team, but I'm with you with points. I mean, I think Oklahoma State should be able to score plenty. I just think Oklahoma scores more. Maybe they got a little bit of a wake up from Kansas. Who knows? Missouri, Georgia. Model's pretty spot on. This one says Georgia by 17. Market says 15.5. Would you lay the points? Would you take the points? Where's your head on this one? This is an SEC East semifinal game.
Yeah, I have no opinion on this game. This all seems right. Georgia, I'm concerned, might be turning it on. Just like not for this game specifically, but like just in general for the college football season. Like I have my concerns that we're just going to see what we saw last year potentially. So.
Yeah, if they had Bowers with them still, I would definitely be with you. That's obviously the only asterisk there. Model says 55.1 for the total. Actual total is 55. So, I mean, even the model's like, I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Charlotte, Tulsa, another candidate for worst game of the week. Tulsa has been terrible. We have been fading Tulsa left and right. We're backing them here against Charlotte. Charlotte's been a fun story. They got a fun coach. I think we all saw that on the midweek game last week. But as bad as Tulsa has been, Model still thinks they're better than Charlotte by more on offense than Tulsa's defense is worse than Charlotte. So we got a B grade pick on Tulsa -1.
Yep. So the other thing I would say here is after that game where we all saw Biff Poggi, he also suspended an unspecified number of players for the next game because basically, what do they say? I'm extremely disappointed with our comportment as a football team against Florida Atlantic and suspended an unspecified number of players for this game against Tulsa. I think that one of those is probably going to be one of their best defensive players, a defensive end that they have. So, yeah, sign me up like Tulsa.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But what? Yeah. What does that even mean?
So they had 12 penalties for over 100 yards, including several personal fouls.
They did a bunch of personal fouls. Remember, they shot themselves in the foot in that game, really. And they got outplayed either way, but they went from they could have hung in there and made it competitive to they got run out of the building because they couldn't keep it together.
Yep. So he was not happy with how some people conducted themselves, and he suspended an unspecified number of players for this game against Tulsa.
That's some fantastic language. All right, well, there you go. Model would say go over 48 if they've lost one of their better defensive players,
Yeah, I mean, no. Not in a game with Charlotte. No.
Fair enough. ULM, Southern Miss. Southern Miss.
Like anybody who's been with us for any amount of time, do we need to talk about this game? I mean, like
we've got people who are this is their first study hall that are with us, and it's not just talking about. We talked about Southern Miss, another team that the model's been high on. Worked out for us last week.
It did very well.
I mean, that was beautiful.
It was.
ULM also really bad. Southern Miss definitely seems like a team that just gets smacked around if you're any good, but they can handle their business against the weaker teams. ULM falls in that category. We got an A-grade play on Southern Miss -135. Model says they should be favored by 10.
Yeah.
We love us some Southern Miss here, I guess, unfortunately. Because in your total, though, Model would say go under 56.5. Model projects 53. You agree with that?
Yeah, I don't particularly care for either of these offenses, and especially Louisiana Monroe. Very bad offense. So, they've had some okay games on offense this season, but on the road in conference is not one of those games where I see UL Monroe putting up like 20 points. And I think that they're going to have to get to like 20 to mid 20s for this game to go over. And I don't think that's going to happen. So in addition to Southern Miss, if you're looking for another angle on this game, I think I would lean towards the under as well.
All right, I'm highlighting certain things. So we have to recap this. If anybody's with us still at the hour and 18 mark, stick with us through the end. And I want to kind of recap a couple of these total things because we got like 4 or 5 of them that we've kind of been talking about that we like. So I want you to write these totals for me. So I'm going to put you on the spot at the end of the show. Auburn, Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt's terrible. Auburn, I mean, they're not bad, I guess, but here we are. Auburn should win. If Vanderbilt's going to win a conference game, I mean, I guess this would be it at home. They're still underdogs by 12.5. Model says 12, so no edge on the side. Total, though, is at 49. Model says 50. What's your thoughts on the total?
Forgive me if I'm not swayed by Auburn's offense after one game. I like the under here. I think this is going to be low scoring. We've talked about it a couple of times this season. Vanderbilt's just a super weird place to play, especially with they've got like the end zones torn out because they're doing renovations.
Their basketball court is like higher than
yes.
One of the
scoreboards in the end zone is just like suspended from wires on a crane because they're doing construction. It's just a weird place to play. I think weird vibes, like slow start. Somebody is either Auburn's going to struggle for like a quarter and a half, and this is going to be like tied midway through the second quarter at like 0-0, or Vanderbilt doesn't score any. And either way, I think under 49 is a good bet.
Do you have any concern about the fact that Vanderbilt's defense grades out at a 117? That's a full standard deviation below college football average, and is by far the worst defense they're going to face in SEC play.
No, not really.
Okay. All right. There you go. All right. There you have it. Hawaii. Because of Jared, Hawaii was so good to us when we faded them coming to the mainland 2 weeks ago. Went back home. We were like, hey, they're back home. Time to back them. And they promptly got thumped.
Yes, that is an accurate description of what happened.
But by a good San Jose State team.
Yep.
Quarterbacked by a guy who played out on the island previously. Yep. So whatever that's worth, this week they're back on the mainland, but we're not fading them. The model penalizes Hawaii coming to the mainland a lot. Playing at altitude, but we're still backing about plus 165, A-grade pick. Model's still not sold on Nevada after 2 straight wins for Nevada.
Yep.
Model's still not buying it.
I also not sold.
Not sold. Okay.
Not sold on Nevada as of yet. I like Hawaii too. Even like with the penalty coming to the mainland, like I'm not sold on Nevada yet. And the fact that you're getting this at above plus 150 for Hawaii, I think is wonderful, wonderful value. So, if Nevada, oh my God, like if Nevada gets blown out at home by Idaho and then comes back and wins 3 straight Mountain West games, like I just feel like I know nothing at that point. So I like Hawaii.
Yeah. All right. We got an A-grade play on them. So got some good value. Got some good plus odds value. Doesn't mean it's going to win. It just means model sees it as a coin toss. And hey, like I always say, my ideal slates, just give me a bunch of coin toss games at if you give me a bunch of coin toss games at plus 165, I am happier than a kid at a candy shop. I mean, that is just fantastic. Yep. Cal, Oregon, model would say lay it with Oregon, lay the 24. The Pac-12, Cousin Jared, oh my gosh, I love it so much. It has gotten so weird. It has gotten so weird. All the bad teams have had moments this year where they've almost beaten one of the good teams. All of them by now. It's gotten fun, but we've also seen some massive blowouts. And Oregon's been on the delivering side of a couple of blowouts. Can they deliver another blowout to another bad team this week?
I think Oregon is on a mission to be like, hey, look, that Washington game was not a fluke. But like so many things, like one thing goes the other way for Oregon in that game. They win that one. And so I think they're on a mission. I think they are just going to be railroading teams until the conference championship game. And then because it's the Pac-12, whoever they end up playing in the conference championship game, I'm sure we'll find a way to beat them, and Oregon will come up disappointingly close as they seem want to do. And so, but that's not till now. That's for later. I think that they're going to blow out Cal, and it's going to be the talking heads are going to be Washington won that game against Oregon, but Oregon's clearly the better team. And so then you get the whole resume head to head, the things that ESPN makes billions of dollars off of arguing about. And so I feel like this just proliferates that. So sure, let's take Oregon, and I think they're going to blow out Cal.
All right. We've got Oregon, who played Washington State the week after that. Washington game started a little slow, but pulled away. And then last week, just thumping Utah at Utah. I mean, that might be one of the worst home losses Utah's had in the Kyle Whittingham era. I mean, that was incredible. I mean, teams don't typically do that to Utah, which kind of goes to your point. And again, we have seen some weird close games. USC last week, Washington last week, Washington also the week before. Colorado playing a couple weird games. Oregon's been, to me, one of the more impressive teams. I think they've got the best defense out of all those teams, and that at least helps them from that. The best defense of the teams with a really good offense is obviously USC's not in that category. So, yeah, laying it with Oregon, never fun to lay points. We've got to pick our spots. This might be one to look at. Marshall, App State, getting 3.5 with Marshall's a C grade. Because, Jared, I think you had said that the money line might be a B grade with Marshall if that was something you're inclined to do.
I would rather take the B grade on the money line here, and this goes back to what I've said a lot recently with App State. This App State defense, not great, not what you would expect from App State of the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And so get one, plus 160 odds, whatever it might be right now. I think it's about plus 160 or so for Marshall on the money line. Yes, sign me up. That would be a B grade according to Sideline. And again, this is more of I just don't trust App State's defense.
We faded Marshall here recently as well, so we're not like biased towards Marshall or anything either. It's both these teams are solid. Solid Sun Belt. Sun Belt's again really strong conference. We love the Sun Belt here. Very solid teams, but neither one of them great. Louisiana Tech Liberty model is pretty close. Says 14.3. Market says 16.5. I mean, not really much of an edge there, but the market is saying 59 for the total. That's at the north end of the key numbers in the high 50s naturally. Model says 56.7. Would you agree and go under?
I would agree and go under. This Louisiana Tech team, I feel like has had, basically every week it's saying go over in the Louisiana Tech games, and they have still had trouble reaching those numbers. Even when Sideline's telling you to go over, it always seems much closer to the actual number than what Sideline's told you. And so it's telling me, number one, that it shifted on Louisiana Tech here. Now it's saying play under, which is new for a game involving Louisiana Tech. And also Liberty, Liberty has just been an under team so far this season. And so I feel like this is a combination.
Lots of running.
Yeah. And so I feel like this is a combination of Sideline making the flip on Louisiana Tech, and I just have this natural inclination to think that Liberty games should go under, and you get it at 59, which is, obviously, very, very key number. You get under all those key numbers in the 50s, some of the most key numbers out there. I like this under 59. You said which one's going to be your favorite. This one might be my favorite.
All right.
Yeah.
Middle Tennessee, New Mexico State. We got a B grade play in New Mexico State. I love this New Mexico State team. We talked about them on show last week. Just a little engine that could. I mean, just 6 wins at this point. We think they actually need a 7th for bowl eligibility because they've got 13 games, and one of them was an FCS. I don't know if the FCS one matters or not. Surely they'll get it at this point. This seems like a great opportunity to get bowl eligibility here at the first part of November. I mean, hats off to them. I'm not a fan of this Middle Tennessee team. I don't know what else to say about New Mexico State. I love what I've seen from them.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. They're just, from a bettor's perspective, a solid investment.
Yeah, 92nd best team, which is incredibly high for New Mexico State. I mean, there was a point last year, 2 years ago, whatever. I mean, they were dead last. Just cannot say enough good things. And we love their consistency. They just kind of go out there. You know what you're getting. Last time we backed them, they struggled a little bit in the first half, came out strong in the second half. I mean, they're just a solid football team. Their defense is not great. Their offense is solid. I mean, there's just a lot to like about them. We're going to take their brethren, New Mexico, getting 10 against UNLV. I'm just not sold on UNLV. They haven't played a tough schedule. They've won some close games. Sure, win a close game. I don't care. We're getting 10 points. Model thinks they should be favored by 3. And with what I've seen from UNLV, that probably feels about like what they'll win by. The only concern I have is what the heck happened last week in New Mexico against Nevada. That's my only concern about this.
Yep, I agree. I am a little concerned about that, but I feel like you hit the nail on the head when you said, UNLV, win as many close games as you want. And great. Win this one. Cool. Win this one close. And I will be ecstatic, UNLV.
Yep, beat it. Do what you've done all season, which is win a close game against a crappy team.
Know,
and they've won. I think they've won a little bit bigger at home, and they've won a little bit closer on the road. Right? So I mean, it sets up pretty well. BYU, West Virginia. We got a B grade pick on BYU plus 9.5. These two teams are firmly for me in the. I have no idea what I'm going to get from them on a week-to-week basis. So sure, give me 9.5 points.
Yep, I can't stand West Virginia.
It's at 10. It's at 10 now. 10's even better.
Yeah, I can't stand West Virginia because they're like I don't know why I just now realized this, but they're basically just the Big 12 BYU. I mean, they're the
I was like, wait a minute.
They're the Big 12 Boise. When you think they're going to zig, they zag. And then when you think they're going to zag, they zig. And you just need to do the opposite of whatever you think you should do. And so, you wanted to back them at home against Oklahoma State.
No, it was.
They blew them out. Yeah.
Was it that? Yeah. Then we wanted to fade them on the road.
Yeah.
Fade them on the road against UCF. They get all the turnovers.
Yep. And so, anyway, yeah, I'm zagging here because this would be, hey, West Virginia at home. You want to stay away from BYU. Not a good spot. Morgantown, tough place to play. So I'm zagging and saying, sure, give me 10 points with BYU because I am just always wrong on this West Virginia team.
If this game was at noon, I would be like, oh, heck no. That's like 9 a.m. body clock time or whatever, right, for BYU. Yeah. Different story here at night. That should help a little bit. Also, one of these teams is going to be eligible, but again, no idea what's going to happen in this game. BYU could win this game by 20, and I'd be like, sure. BYU could score 0 points this game, and I'd be like, sure. It's just a when you have high variance games, you got to look to the points or the money line, right? And that's kind of what we're saying here. Model thinks it should be West Virginia by 6 on average. That they're a better team and they're at home, and they got a massive home field advantage, but not by enough to be favored by 10. San Diego State, Utah State. We got a B grade pick on San Diego State. I think maybe we're evaluating San Diego State correctly at this point. I'm gonna go out on a limb, or again, near correct. Right, all models are wrong, but we knew San Diego State would be worse. We were down on them at the start of the season. Model has them ranked 109. Like that feels like we're in the ballpark now.
Yeah,
we're evaluating about. I mean, they can't get too much worse than that because you're starting to get into the really bad teams. You get too much lower. Model's got Utah State at 105. Model thinks Utah State's the better team, but on the road, plus odds with San Diego State's B grade value. It's not quite the great odds we love for our coin toss games. It's still a coin toss game of plus odds.
Yeah, so that's essentially my breakdown for this game. The other one is like Brady Hoke. If you lose at home 6-0 to Nevada, and that doesn't make you look in the mirror about your offense, like you might as well just give up the ghost.
Just hang it up.
Because like you're not going to be long for this job if you keep running your offense the way you have after you lose. Like it's one thing when you're winning those games like 20-7. It's another thing when you're losing. Even if you're winning them 12-0, you're still winning. Yeah. And so there's a big difference there. So anyway, I think this is also a look in the mirror spot for San Diego State and be like, is this really what we are now? And if it is, like, buddy, you don't have much time left.
And I think you make another great point in that was their last game. That was 2 weeks ago, bye week last week. So that helps. The bye week could not come at a better time, a better and a worse time. I mean, a worse time because you don't want that loss lingering. You'd rather just get back on the field, but a better time in that stuff needed to change, right? And so it's not like they had a bad luck loss that lingered for 2 weeks. They had we got to get some work in and figure something out. Right. And it's a great time to have 2 weeks to do that. Kansas, Iowa State. I am super pumped for this game. Shaylin Daniels still doubtful. He's starting to. I don't know if he's going to play this year. Beans is starting to look a little better now. He's getting more reps. He looked better last year at the start of the season when he came in. He was not looking good. Starting to look a little bit better. Just a massive discrepancy here in that you've got Kansas, who's good offense, bad defense, and Iowa State's bad offense, good defense. I mean, it should be a great contrast of styles. Model says Iowa State by 3. That's about where the market is. Market's pretty spot on here. Total in this game projects to be 51. Model would go under 53.5. The total is going to be decided by who controls the style of this game. Does Kansas control it? Does Iowa State control, or does the weather control? I haven't looked at the weather. What are your thoughts on the total?
I would lean towards the under here because Kansas's defense seems to be improving a little bit.
The model's got it down to 110. Which is less than a full standard deviation worse than average. And it was like up in the 120s, I think.
I was going to say, which is somehow vastly improved from what they used to be early in the season. And for Iowa State, outside of the one game against Oklahoma, Iowa State games, outside of that Oklahoma game, Iowa State games, not very many points. And so Iowa State at home, I see them uglying this game up. Kansas's defense has been playing a little bit better as of recent. Iowa State, not a great offense to try to capitalize, not the best offense to try to capitalize against that Kansas defense. So I like the under here. I think not as much because you're in the middle of some key numbers here as opposed to some of the other totals that we've talked about, but I still think under would be the way I would look in this one.
Weather looks beautiful, not a lot of wind, no precipitation, in the 40s, great football weather for the Midwest. But you're right, Iowa State seemingly was going to start playing faster, higher scoring games against Oklahoma State and Oklahoma. We were like, whoa, they're going to change things up. And then also now it's kind of back to what we've expected. 41 points against TCU, 40 in the game against Cincinnati, 48 against Baylor. I mean, hanging in the 40s in all these games. And so the same idea here. Model thinks maybe a little bit higher here, 51, but not into the mid-50s. Georgia Southern and Texas State. Because, Jared, we got a big pick on Georgia Southern again. We talked about we're high on them. I've got them ranked 45th. And I think I'm higher than a lot of people in Texas State. It happened from the start, really, from second week or whatever. You know, these teams with the transfers, the player-based model, again, really huge for helping us understand that quicker into the season. We've been talking a lot about Texas State totals. They play fast. Their offense isn't that good. Their efficiency grades out as a 95. The efficiency is below average. Now, they score on average more points than average because the pace. Georgia Southern plays at a fast pace. I mean, you got two teams who are going to pace this thing up. Model says 65.5. The actual total is 70.5. What do you got?
I'm not going under. This is my warning. Don't go under. And
Texas State has played more under games. I think than you realize.
I'm sure.
And the market was really high on their totals. That said, it's scary when you play a team like Georgia Southern. I don't think you can go over. And I think that's the good thing about the model here. The model's kind of telling you like, hey, the model's saying under. We don't want to go under, but the model's at least preventing us from going over. There's like 60 games. Like we can pass on the total of this game. Right? We don't have to play. And I think that's where the model's helping us here because just when you have these fast-paced teams like that, you just don't know what exactly is going to happen. And if things go right, you could end up with like a 35-point quarter. And that's going to really change. But as we talk about, a game to get over 70, you can't have 10 minutes of scoreless. And Texas State's done that a few times because their offense has really stalled out at times. And if their offense stalls out, it's one of those. I think it's a good stay away total. We like Georgia Southern. We're high on them. Let's take advantage of the fact that the market hasn't caught up to just how good this team is. Let's just visit Georgia Southern and pass on the total.
And speaking of stay away totals,
Washington Cal. Oh my goodness, model says 66, and I'm like, you mean 86? You mean 106? You mean 126? Like, I don't know why the model thinks Washington Southern Cal have decent defenses because they don't. I don't understand it. Here we are. Again, all models are wrong, and again, we can speculate. And we can strongly speculate or weakly speculate. This is the weirdest total to me, the projection. This one I actually might play over if I was going to play it because these defenses are so terrible. Like I don't understand how.
There's no way you can play under in this game. No way.
Now, when this game. Model predicts USC on average 35, 31. That's actually a reasonable number of points for two generic football teams. Not these two. I swear, if USC wins this 35-31, like we just have to retire. We just have to be like, well, we clearly don't know anything. Just post the model and just don't even talk. Here's the pictures of the model for you. I'm with you though. I feel like you can't play the under in this. It might go under. That might be the smart play. I'm sure there will be a lot of people saying it's a smart play. I just don't know because these offenses are so good and these defenses are so bad. Like the edges the offenses have. I think the game plan for these defenses has to be slow them down. The game plan has to be let's take a lot of time on offense, keep the other offense on the field. I don't think anyone could do that. You could say that all you want. I don't think it's going to happen. Like, these offenses are going to score fast. These defenses can't keep anything in front of them. Like, the exact game plan you want to do to mess up the other offense is just untenable, I feel like, for both teams. Jake and I talked about the side. We have an A grade on USC plus odds. It's come down a lot because, Jared, I've noticed, and again, this is why you get in on Dub Club under $1 a day. You get all the projections early on in the week. We give you picks early in the week. I've seen a lot of numbers move towards the model this week, and this is one of them. I think it's down to like plus 115 or something. I'd still be playing at plus 115. I still think USC should be favored, but plus 150 is a whole lot better than whatever number you're getting now on this. So it's another reason that you want to be on Dub Club with us. Again, that sign up link's in the show description if you're not already there with us, because this is one of many games that the number has massively moved on. Just a couple days later. SMU Rice. This would be another one I'd consider laying the points. SMU's only a 12-point favorite. Model thinks 24. SMU has looked insanely good lately. That's really all there is to it.
And I will say, I feel like Sideline might be underestimating Rice a little bit.
Probably true.
When you go back and look at their games, though, like, I see why they could be underestimating Rice, because they did lose to UConn earlier this season, which UConn's not a good team, but actually based on how much Sideline likes UConn, you would think that wouldn't impact its thoughts on Rice very
it's
much.
It's not quite as interconnected like that as you think. It's a little more independent of things.
Yeah, that's why you have a PhD in statistics and I just sit here and talk. So I think it might be underestimating Rice a little bit. And even though SMU has been unbelievable, let's say that it's slightly overestimating SMU. Even you combine those things, you're still not close to this number. I think this is a result of Rice blowing out Tulsa 2 weeks ago. Tulsa's bad. And then playing Tulane close last week at home, which we've talked about. Tulane has been playing with their food this season.
Tulane's become what Cincinnati was a couple years ago.
Yes. And SMU not playing with their food this season.
SMU, we talked about it with that. I mean, they have been just business-like, just chicken tail taking names.
And I cannot wait until we get to that conference championship game where hopefully it's like SMU versus Tulane. And I can go back to my preseason prediction where I took SMU plus 220 something to win the conference. And I'm able to hedge out of that and take Tulane and hit a middle there and not a middle, but hedge out and basically ensure a profit. It's going to be great.
You might be able to do that in real life. I don't know if you're going to be able to do that for the contest.
No, I can't do that for the contest, but I'm saying in real life. Who cares about the contest? I'm talking about real life.
I mean, hey, the stakes are pretty high for this contest. We haven't figured them out yet, but there's like talks of beards and shaving heads and having to wear signs on the street. I mean, I don't know. There's talk of all sorts of things about what the wage is going to be. So you should care. Just don't out there.
Okay.
Kentucky, Mississippi State. We have an A grade on Mississippi State. Miles Muhammad, Mississippi State. They, hey, you take Mississippi State as plus odds back-to-back weeks. You go 1-1, you win money. That's what happened to us last 2 weeks. Why don't you win again? They're at home. Will Rogers, questionable. And that's in the model. At this point, we just don't know what's going to happen with him, right? If he's playing or not, that matters. He's a pretty good quarterback. So, I mean, that's kind of the biggest thing on this one. If you see the number move, it's probably because of news about him. I think that's kind of where it boils down to. I think if he plays, I think got a shot to win this game. If he doesn't, anything can happen. It's college sports, and Mississippi State's not a bad team. Kentucky plays so slow, they enable weaker teams like Mississippi State to stick around. But losing Will Rogers would be a big blow to Mississippi State. So that's the thing to keep an eye on. And we'll update people with a projection on this as we get closer. Once we know more, we'll update the Dub Club people. So again, if you're not with us, that's part of the benefit. You get all the update information about all this stuff, because this is what I do 24/7 these days. Cousin Jared, how are you feeling about Mississippi State plus 145?
Not great. But again, that's usually the ones that work out the best for us.
Also true.
Yeah, I'm not like Sideline, I feel like has overestimated.
I think you're right.
Mississippi State all season. And I want to say that like Kentucky's good, because I just want to be right about Kentucky. Kentucky, I expected more from them in that game against Tennessee. They kept it close for a while, but I expected more from them. I really thought they were going to win that game. I don't know. Sure, plus 145, plus 150, plus 155, whatever it's at now, I'll take it on Mississippi State. Personally, I may be like, whatever you normally put on an A-grade plate, I may be scaling it back like 10%, just knowing that like sideline is high on Mississippi State. But yeah.
I think the biggest thing here that adds into that is Kentucky's coming off of that Tennessee game. And I don't know where their head is from that. That's obviously a emotional loss, a tough loss, a close loss, a loss to, again, as you noted, a team that is a rival to them. Mississippi State lost a game on the road against Auburn. I'm not sure that means as much to them. I'm not sure it's as big of a deal. I don't know if that matters as much, but if nothing else, I'd rather come off of a road loss to a team that didn't mean anything to them.
Yep.
And Mississippi State's still like, hey, we're still 4-4. Like, we still got a chance to make a bowl. Like, that's their stage is a little bit different. Whereas Kentucky, I think, was having higher hopes and rival and that sort of thing. I don't know if that matters or not. It may not, but it may give us that may help offset the fact that the model has been a little high on Mississippi State, for better or worse. And again, it worked out. It didn't work out last week. It did 2 weeks ago, but both of them were about plus 200. So we're still plus money from those two. So if it keeps doing that and they keep going 50-50 in plus odds games, sign me up, right? Each guy evaluate over the long term. We can't just evaluate one game. Purdue, Michigan model would say lay the 33 with Michigan, since it should be 37. Purdue is so bad. I feel like this is one of my other favorites. I think I would lay the 33 with Michigan.
I would also lay the 33 with Michigan. This game's going to end up being like, I don't know,
52-3.
Yep. 52-10, 45-0. I mean, Michigan.
10 would tie the most amount of points Michigan's allowed all season. That's pretty okay. You're saying 10, that's a lot.
Yeah, okay, never mind. I was about to say, let's amend that to 45-6.
Yeah, it's probably going to be not very pretty. Purdue, Nebraska was one of my favorite picks last week. Backing them just because it was like, hey, model had an A grade on Nebraska, and anytime I can fade Purdue in an A grade, sign me up. Like, they are terrible. And I don't know about their future. I don't know. I haven't watched a lot of their games. I just know that the market has still acted like they're a decent Big Ten team, and they are not. They are really terrible. So Michigan's one of my top favorites. Of if you have to pick like 3-4 games to lay points, that's one of my opinion. Alabama, LSU. Jake and I covered this one on show. We got an A grade play on Alabama laying minus 155. It's starting to eke out a little bit higher than that. So again, benefit of being on Double Club, but model says it's an A grade up to 270. This is one of the tighter spreads that LSU has had against Alabama, even when you include when they had Joe freaking Burrow. I don't quite understand why this spread is so low in Alabama. Am I the only person who's like, LSU's very good, Alabama's still Alabama? And as much as we, rumors of their demise from earlier in the season, I think greatly exaggerated, right? And am I crazy? Like, I don't quite understand it.
I feel like just Alabama's been so good for so long that a lot of the focus has been on Alabama's deficiencies. It's been on that game against South Florida where they only scored 17 points or whatever it was. It's the fact that
monsoon or whatever.
Yeah, it's the fact that Milroe hasn't been every other Alabama quarterback for the past 6 or 7 years that they've had come through here. And they've liked to focus on LSU's offense. And it seems to be that we're the only ones focused on, number one, Alabama's defense still very, very good.
Very good.
LSU's defense, very not good.
Not good for SEC standards.
Not good for SEC standards. I mean, they look great against Army, but then Army lost to UMass, so I'm not bitter about that. And then of course Alabama's offense, I think, becoming more comfortable, like kind of having more of an identity than they did earlier in the season. So I think that just people are focusing on the wrong things here. Is what
and I would say LSU absolutely has the better offense. Like, I'm not trying to say that Bama has a better offense. LSU has a better offense, but the gap between the offenses is a fraction of what the gap is between the defense and the game location. Like, that has to matter, right? Like, I know Alabama lost at home to Texas, but like, it's just one game. It's one game, and Texas defense is a lot better than LSU's. Alabama's offense is in a much better place than right now. The other thing that I want to point out about Jalen Milroe is he's climbing in my quarterback ratings. And this is something I've thought about and talked about making public here, some of my player ratings and stuff. And it's not that I'm afraid to do as much as it's just the like getting it coded and formatted so I can easily update it rather than just be like a manual task. But he's slowly been rising. He's up to number 21 in my quarterback ratings. And I mean, he was down to like 50 or something after those first couple starts. I mean, the model was like, whoa, we don't like what we see at all. And now he's looking a lot better. He's not going to win the Heisman good. But I mean, he's now, to me, and they talked about, they were hoping he could be Jalen Hurts. And of course, I think they hoped that he was Oklahoma Jalen Hurts. He looks to me like he's Alabama Jalen Hurts, which wasn't a bad quarterback. It's just he wasn't Oklahoma Jalen Hurts. He's not Philadelphia Eagles Jalen Hurts, but Alabama Jalen Hurts wasn't bad. It's just he wasn't Tua, right? Like,
and let's take that a step further. Alabama Jalen Hurts was great against non-championship level defenses.
Right.
This LSU defense, not championship level.
Not a championship level defense, exactly. And Texas might be. And that might be part of the problem. Texas is a fantastic defense, right? The biggest issue with Texas is that Quinn Ewers isn't a Heisman candidate. And if he actually was, then you're talking about a top 5 team, right? That's the issue that their defense is fantastic. I don't know. Anyway, Alabama, a great pick. Miami on the road against NC State. Another one that I know the lines moved a lot. We locked in Miami minus 170 as an A grade pick. It's out to like minus 200 by now. Still an A grade play, but you're losing value for not being with us. Again, you pay under $1 a day and you'll make it back you'll make it back, not even in winning and losing. You'll make it back in your winning, but you'll also just make it back in the amount of money you save with getting better numbers. I bet you're going to make anyway, which is nice. Model still loves Miami. We talk about teams that's too high on, too low on. And again, I have to make it clear. The model is wrong on every team. We know it's slightly wrong on some teams. We know it's really wrong on some teams. We speculate. We don't know the truth. We speculate. We have enough data. We think the model is a little bit biased high on Miami. Even though it's biased high on Miami, the edge on this one is still to the point where it's still worth playing. Because NC State just isn't that good. And Miami, while probably not as good as the model thinks, is still a good team. And they clearly haven't quit. And that was the big fear everybody had after that stupid, terrible loss they had was they quit and they didn't. They've played really hard. I've enjoyed backing them. I enjoyed backing them against Clemson. I don't think we backed them against Virginia. And they won that game. They handled that game. So, I mean.
I think this is an overreaction to NC State beating Clemson last week. And I think this is also because, I mean, I'm would definitely like fall prey to this if I didn't have sideline to kind of keep me in line here. But Miami, like we talk about how stupid it was they lost that game to Georgia Tech, and yes, that was 100% inexcusable. But also, don't be in a 1-score game with Georgia Tech at home at that point in the game. But then they had the tough loss to North Carolina on the road. I think we all understand that. But then coming back, Virginia, who just beat North Carolina, Miami had a perfect opportunity to screw that one up too, and didn't manage to win that game. You mentioned that I think Van Dyke 2 years ago, 2 years ago was great. Last year, not good. They let go of the offense coordinator, brought in a new offense coordinator. Clearly that has turned Van Dyke back around. And so I, like you, have lots of things to like about Miami. And again, I'll go back to NC State. Not very good. Think this is the overreaction to them beating Clemson.
Van Dyke is the 11th best quarterback, and he's been fantastic this season. And I think you're right. It's Miami could have blown the game to Virginia. They didn't, and that's good. And that's the benefit of the money line. That's all we're asking them to do here. We're all in a little bit of price with it, but we're not asking them to buy a certain amount of points. We're just saying, hey, just get the job done on the road and just get the win and move on. And there's the back of my mind, like, can Cristobal screw this up? Here's the thing, though. Cristobal has only done that twice in the last 6 years. He's only done that twice in the last 6 years. I know, which is insane. That you do it once, and but whatever. But the odds are he won't do it again for another 5 years or so, 3, 4, or 5 years, whatever. So hopefully, I think we're good on that at least. But Washington State is hosting Stanford. Model still believes in Washington State. Model does not believe in Stanford. Says this should be Washington State minus about 20. Model would say lay the 13.5. I don't. It's the Pac-12. Who knows? Pac-12 after dark. Who knows? Not after dark. They are after dark for most of us. Who knows? You can lay it if you want. I'm not touching it. The model would say go over 59.5. You're on the right side of 61, 62, wrong side of 59, 58. Model projects 64 points. Are you comfortable going over 59.5?
I am. So here's a listing of points given up by Stanford in conference games. 56, 21. What the heck happened in that game?
Who was
40? That was Arizona, actually. 21. And then 42, 43, 42, 42. I'm going to guess that Washington State ends up with between 35 and 42 points. And so then
model projects 42, by the way.
And so then we're just asking Stanford to get about 20, which I think is perfectly reasonable against the Washington State team that has not been much better, especially as of recent, giving up 44, 38, and 38 last week to Arizona State. Not fantastic. Yeah. So, I like the over in this one.
Washington State's defense is rating below average. Stanford's is well below average. Both these teams are above average in pace as well, and that is another key factor why there's so many points in these games. They're both just playing recklessly fast, which is a change for Stanford and fun. For a new Stanford regime there. Western Kentucky UTEP model is taking 10.5 with UTEP. We've been really high on Western Kentucky. So we are fading Western Kentucky after we've backed them for several weeks in a row now. How do you feel about that?
I feel good about that. What I don't feel good about is this. You got 10.5, opened it like 11. So like say I got 11 here. But then also now it's down to like 8.5. And so a lot of the value on this is gone. So I would say UTEP probably still the right side. Not as much value if you were honest with at Dub Club at the beginning when these lines came out on Sunday.
Yeah, model projects 6.5. So if you got the 11, great. 10.5, still good, B grade. At 8.5, you're right, it is losing some of that value. Yep. Oregon State, Colorado. Model says Oregon State minus 16. So it would lay the 13.5 with Oregon State. I'm really impressed with Oregon State. I think there's a good chance. I'm of two minds of this. I think Oregon State can blow them out because we've seen Colorado get destroyed by the top teams in the Pac-12. Oregon State is absolutely in that conversation. Oregon State might be better than Oregon and Washington. It's very possible. They do it a little bit differently, but their offense is not that far behind. It's only not in that tier because Washington, USC, and Oregon offenses are so. But Oregon State's offense is still really good, but they actually have a competent defense. A really good defense. I think there's a real good chance Colorado gets blown out. We've also seen Colorado. I was talking about it. They play hard to the end. Go for the back door. To me, you're laying 13.5 with Oregon State. You do not want this to be Oregon State by anything less than 21 in the fourth quarter. Oregon State might be up 35 in the fourth quarter, and you're good. If they're not up 35 in the fourth quarter, you got to be a little bit worried about the way this game's going to end. I don't know what to do with it. What are you doing with it?
Yeah, so that I feel like this is a very well set line. If it's below 2 touchdowns, I'm like you, I would probably lean towards Lance because I feel like, oh my gosh, like whatever UCLA did to that Colorado offensive line last week, I feel like Oregon State, you mentioned them being a good defense. Oregon State, maybe the second best defense in the Pac-12 behind UCLA. I think UCLA may have given Oregon State an idea. Utah. Okay, yeah. So those three definitely the top 3 defenses in the Pac-12. I think Oregon State has an idea. They can look at what UCLA did and be like, oh yeah, I'm chomping at the bit. Can't wait to get after.
And UCLA only didn't cover and win by a ton because of 4 first-half turnovers. I mean, they destroyed Colorado. Yeah, they should have been up 35 in the fourth quarter, so it didn't matter. The problem is they weren't until Colorado backdoored.
And you mentioned that Oregon State a much better offense than UCLA. So less than 2 touchdowns, I would lean towards laying the points. If it gets to 14 or more than 14, I would take the points to Colorado because you took the words right out of my mouth. Doesn't matter what the score is, especially at home. I think Colorado is going to be trying to score points until there's double zeros on the clock in the fourth quarter.
Speaking of points, model would say to go over 62, project 66. If 61 is that, I mean, where could you play the over? Because we know Colorado is going to try to score until the very end.
Yeah, I this is a stay away for me. I mean, just the unders have been so good to us in Colorado games. I just even though
they play with a fast pace, but they could get stifled by the really good defenses.
Yes, and that's what I'm worried is them getting stifled.
Boise State, Fresno State models pretty spot on side and total. Fresno State 7-1, looking strong, heading towards potentially a collision course with Air Force for the Mountain West title. There's no divisions anymore, so it's just the two best teams. Obviously, those were in different divisions back in the day. Boise State, at this point, just playing upset king. They aren't going to make it unless a bunch of chaos happens. At this point, you think with that, you can't afford to lose a game like they lost to Colorado State. But, still kind of destiny in their hands a little bit more than you'd think at 4-4. I say, you can't afford to lose that type of game, but like they can still recover, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Yep. Do you think they recover? Can they get the road win here? They're favored by 3 on the road. No, they're not. Yep. Fresno State's favored. Fresno State's favored by 3 at home.
Yep.
What do you think?
Boise. Zig and zag, baby. They look like the inferior team here, so they're going to win this one easily.
Boise has been a wonky team, to say the least, with regards to every time you think you know what they're going to do, they go the other direction. Here's my issue: is they looked great last week in thumping Wyoming. That's my only issue. Is they looked great last week. But it would not surprise me for them to go on the road and win this one and then lose next week at home in Mexico.
Well, that is exactly. I mean, you outlined it perfectly like 3 weeks ago. Exactly what was going to happen. Like they're going to keep winning now until you have hope. That's the point. Like until you have hope, you have to have hope that they have turned a corner. You have hope that they can get to the conference championship game. It's like, oh man, they're going to have to be playing Air Force. I mean, from a talent perspective, they got so much more talent. You start looking ahead, and that's when they lose. Yeah. It's not right now when you're like, oh man, what a disappointing season for Boise. They're already out of the conference championship title hunt.
Yeah, and they play Air Force and Fresno both. So I mean, they have the destiny in their own hands. You just have to think again. That's the hope point. You lose a lot of hope when you lose to Colorado State because you're like, knowing that the top 2 get in and there's a couple good teams up there, you lose a game like that, and that could be what at the that should be at the end what keeps you out.
Yep.
They could win out, and obviously they make it. I don't even have to win out; they just got to win at least one of those, and maybe get some help or the right thing or whatever. You're taking Boise. You're taking money line men. Plus 149 would be a B grade. It's plus 125 right now, so it's.
I would probably take 3 points in this situation since since there was there's no A or B grade edge on the money line. I would lean towards taking the 3 points. 3 points always good.
All right, wrapping us up. UCLA and Arizona, A grade playing UCLA. I've loved UCLA ever since they went to Garbers. I texted this out to the Discord a couple weeks ago. I was like, hey, model says that Garber should be playing. Sure enough, right after that, they made the change, and it's gotten a lot better for them. Again, they only didn't cover last week because 4 turnovers in the first half, kind of fluky game, but that they showed in the third quarter they're a really good team. I've got them 12th overall. We're on UCLA here. Not because we're not high on Arizona, but because we're just that high on UCLA. I think we're higher than the market on UCLA more than anything else. I've got Arizona 62, and it's hard to be that much higher than them because their defense still struggles. But 62 is pretty good for Arizona because I'm pretty sure the last year, were 80, 90, 100, right? So, I mean, I'm high on Arizona too. I think everyone's high on Arizona. It's just we're super high on UCLA. So to me, this is more about I'm on UCLA. I'm not fading Arizona as much as I'm just until the market realizes this UCLA defense is legit. Legit good. And people don't realize that yet. I've been preaching all season, basically. This UCLA defense is incredible.
Like you said, as long as UCLA's defense is being priced this way, sign me up. I think that they are, as much love as I have for the Arizona offense there, I have much more appreciation for this UCLA defense. I think they can do enough to limit the Arizona offense. And you talked about that change to Garbers, and I think this is what's it called? Like it's addition by subtraction because what you subtracted was the backbreaking turnovers. And it's like you don't
pick sixes, multiple pick sixes. In tight, low scoring games.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's not like, you need Garbers to hang the moon or anything. Like you just need him to be fine. And
he's been
fine.
He's been very competent. It hasn't been great, but I mean, and that's, I think, why they played them both. And they were like, oh, this guy's not that good. We got to go to the guy with the potential. It's like, he has the potential, but unfortunately, talk about how much he adds to the table. He took a lot more off the table, unfortunately. Maybe next year will be the year for him. He does have the potential. He's got to work on that. And it's just one of those, hey, the end of the season's not the time to do it. Offseason will be. I'm sure he'll be great next year, but for now, not so. Usually tied for the 6th best defense according to Sideline, rounding error away from number 5. I mean, people do not realize just how good this UCLA defense is. I think I finally feel like I've been hearing a little bit more in the last month, people talking about how much they respect it. But I mean, it's so good. And the market is just not treating them like they should. UCLA's pace is still really high. So it's not going to show up in points per game. It's going to show up in yards per play, that sort of thing. And the fact that they're playing a lot of these really good offenses, it matters as well. But I love this UCLA defense. So we're on UCLA. Model says they should win by 15. I'm curious to see, this Arizona team's been playing really well. If Arizona is for real, then I think this is a close UCLA win. If Arizona is good but still has some flaws, I think 15 is pretty right. So the model for now is saying, I think Arizona's good. I think they're improved. I think they still have some flaws, and UCLA should handle them. If Arizona hangs around, maybe that's more of an indication that Arizona is a little bit more for real and maybe more in the 40s than in the 60s, which is very possible. They've been really impressive. It's only a small sample size of game, so the model can't overreact too much, because we know if we overreact too much, then we're going to be more wrong than right. And that's what we're trying to do. We're not trying to be right on every single game. As cool as that would be, we're trying to be right on average, have a well-tuned model, because unfortunately, as much as we'd love to be right on every single game, we know that's not right. So why try to do something that's literally impossible? Instead, focus on having the best, most accurate model possible, because that's what we talk about. And I have it in the outro music at the end. If we can accurately know when we say 50%, we really mean 50%. Then that tells us bet the plus 130s, bet the plus 140s, bet the plus 150 or heavier if it's really 50%. We know we're going to lose half the time, but the only way to actually be accurate on that is we are going to lose. If I say 50%, it's really 100%. That's not right. That's not good. As counterintuitive as that might be. Cousin Jared, that is all the games. We have run the gamut. Do we have?
If this were a marathon, we would have set a personal record.
I can't believe we went through the whole thing we're at 2 hours and 5 minutes right now. I really was thinking with all the games this week and the fact that Jake was on the show earlier, and that I thought we'd be at 3. I really thought 3 hours.
I did too.
Yeah. But here we are. Good job us.
Yeah.
All right. Again, remember, sign up link for Dub Club in the show description if you're not with us. If not, hopefully you enjoy this one time study hall version where Cousin Jared and I cover every single college football game. We do this every week over on Dub Club for those people, along with providing a ton of information, help you be a better. Cousin Jared, any parting words?
Glad that y'all were able to be with us for this one episode. Sign up
college basketball next week.
Yeah, college basketball. I will not be on the study hall version of college basketball.
Jake is going to be on the study hall version of college basketball. He's already. I think he's already trying to make the video by himself right now. He's started. He's trying to do it.
Yes, the passion oozes from his veins, is what I would say. So yeah, can't wait for college basketball season to get up and going.
All right, we'll have the music and the slides take us out.